What if the reason money has not been flowing freely into your life is not that you have failed, not that you have been forgotten, and not that abundance belongs to someone else? What if the real obstruction is quieter than that? What if it has been living in the way you think about money, the way you speak about money, the way your body tightens when money leaves, and the way your mind prepares for loss before anything has even happened? Tonight, as you close your eyes and allow the day to fall away, you are entering a different kind of space. Your body is no longer being asked to perform. Your mind is no longer being asked to calculate every answer. You do not have to solve the next month tonight. You do not have to know where every dollar will come from. You do not have to force a door open before you sleep. Tonight is about releasing the inner resistance that has made receiving feel difficult. For perhaps many years, you have been doing everything you thought you were supposed to do. You have worked, you have planned, you have worried, you have saved when you could. You may have read books about prosperity, repeated affirmations, imagined a better future, prayed for relief, searched for opportunities, tried new strategies, and promised yourself again and again that somehow things would become easier, and yet there may still be an invisible feeling underneath it all. Not enough. Not enough money. Not enough security. Not enough opportunity, not enough time, not enough support, not enough proof that everything is going to be all right. That feeling is important because when not enough becomes the atmosphere in which you live, it begins influencing what you notice, what you expect, what you accept, what you reject, and even what possibilities you fail to recognize. So tonight, we begin somewhere deeper than the bank account. We begin with consciousness. Not because practical financial action does not matter. It matters. Wise saving matters. Responsible spending matters. Learning matters. Negotiating matters. Building useful skills matters. Seeking opportunities matters. Taking right action matters. But action taken from panic has a different quality from action taken from clarity. A frightened mind can work very hard and still overlook an open door. A peaceful mind can sometimes see in 5 minutes what anxiety could not see in 5 months. So this practice is not about pretending money falls from the sky. It is about becoming inwardly available to wisdom, opportunity, circulation, receiving, and right action. It is about changing the condition from which you meet your financial life. And tonight, that condition begins to soften. Let your breathing become slower. Let your jaw relax. Let your shoulders drop. Let the muscles around your eyes loosen. You have carried enough for one day. Now you may release it. There is a beautiful principle at the heart of the prosperity teachings associated with Florence Scovel Shinn. Money is not merely something to possess. Money circulates. It moves. It is exchanged for food, shelter, service, creativity, education, transportation, comfort, generosity, beauty, and opportunity. You receive it. You direct it. Someone else receives it. They direct it again. And the movement continues. When fear enters this relationship, however, circulation begins to feel dangerous. Every payment feels like loss. Every bill feels like an attack. Every purchase feels like depletion. Every unexpected expense becomes evidence that life is against you. Every person who has more seems to prove that there is less for you. And little by little, instead of being a participant in circulation, you begin to feel like someone standing beside a river trying desperately to hold the water in your fists. But water cannot be held by squeezing harder. The tighter you grip it, the more uncomfortable the experience becomes. The answer is not recklessness. The answer is not spending what you do not have. The answer is not ignoring obligations. The answer is changing the inner posture from fear to stewardship, from panic to wisdom, from "it is leaving me" to "I am directing it," from "there will never be enough" to "I am learning to create, receive, manage, and circulate more wisely," from "money controls me" to "I meet money with peace." Tonight, your relationship with money begins to change. And because repetition matters, you may choose to return to these ideas for many nights. Not because 21 nights is a magical formula, not because the mind obeys an exact mystical deadline, but because repeated thoughts become familiar, repeated emotional states become easier to enter, repeated choices become habits, and habits quietly become identity. So if you choose to listen again, do not approach each night desperately asking, "Has it worked yet?" That is still the language of lack. Instead say, "I am learning a new relationship with supply. I am teaching myself peace. I am becoming more receptive to right ideas. I am becoming more courageous about right action. I am becoming a better steward of what enters my hands." And the way is becoming clearer. Now imagine your financial consciousness as a river. See it clearly. At first, perhaps the water is barely moving. Branches have fallen across it. Old stones have collected. Fear has built one barrier. Resentment has built another. A memory of financial failure has created another. A sentence from childhood has become another. Money does not grow on trees. People like us never get ahead. Rich people are selfish. You have to suffer for money. Money always disappears. Something always goes wrong. One sentence by itself may seem harmless, but repeated for years, a sentence can become an expectation. And an expectation can influence 1,000 small decisions. Tonight, you do not have to attack these old beliefs. You simply begin removing them. One branch at a time, one stone at a time, one fear at a time, until the water remembers how to move. Say quietly, "I release the belief that struggle is my permanent condition. I release the belief that money must always bring fear. I release the expectation of loss. I release the habit of anticipating disaster. I am learning to expect guidance. I am learning to recognize opportunity. I am learning to receive without guilt. I am learning to give without fear. I am learning to manage money in peace. Divine intelligence guides my decisions. Divine order governs my financial life. The way is made clear before me." Now, consider an illustrative story. Imagine a woman named Catherine, living in New York in the late 1920s. She is 34 years old. She works as a secretary in a law office. Her monthly income is $65. Almost all of it disappears into rent, food, transportation, and the most basic necessities. There is no meaningful savings account waiting in the background. Her parents are gone. There is no wealthy relative preparing to rescue her. And her employer has already made it obvious that the opportunities available to women in that office are extremely limited. Catherine is frightened, not occasionally worried. Frightened. Every dollar has become emotionally charged. Before she spends it, she calculates. After she spends it, she regrets. When she receives her wages, instead of feeling gratitude, she immediately feels the terror of watching them disappear. She has been studying prosperity ideas. She has spoken affirmations. She has imagined better circumstances. She has tried to believe, yet nothing seems to move. And because nothing seems to move, she begins drawing a painful conclusion. Perhaps these spiritual principles work for everyone except me. Perhaps I am doing something wrong. Perhaps God has forgotten me. Perhaps abundance simply does not belong to me. But the deeper problem is not that Catherine wants prosperity. The deeper problem is that she is trying to attract money while being terrified of circulation. She wants money to come in, but she emotionally resists every moment when money goes out. She wants a river flowing toward her while trying to build a wall immediately behind her, and that cannot feel like flow. The teaching she encounters is simple. Stop treating every outgoing dollar as a funeral. Bless it. When you pay rent, recognize what the payment represents. Shelter. When you buy food, recognize nourishment. When you buy a stamp, recognize communication. When you pay for transportation, recognize movement. When you pay for a service, recognize value exchanged. Instead of silently saying, "There goes more of my money," begin saying, "I bless this money as I direct it. May it serve well wherever it goes. I give in wisdom, not fear. I receive in gratitude, not guilt. Money circulates through my life in right and beneficial ways. More good can reach me. More good can move through me. This changes something important. The payment may remain exactly the same, but the consciousness behind the payment changes. Catherine begins with her rent. The next morning, when she hands over the money, fear immediately rises. Her mind wants to calculate what remains. Her stomach tightens, but she stops. She breathes, and inwardly she says, I bless this money. Thank you for the roof over me. I release this payment in peace. I remain open to supply. Nothing dramatic happens. No trumpet sounds. No stranger runs down the street carrying a fortune. Catherine simply notices that the payment feels different. Then she buys bread. Again, she blesses the exchange. She buys milk. Again, she blesses the exchange. At church, she gives a small amount. Again, she blesses the exchange. Then she takes the practice one step further. Once each week, if it can be done responsibly, she gives something voluntarily, not enough to endanger her rent, not enough to prove spirituality, not from guilt, not as a bargain with God. She gives something because she wants her subconscious mind to experience a new message. I am not helpless. I have something to contribute. I am not merely waiting for life to give to me. I am already participating in circulation. One week, she encounters an older woman near a station who appears cold and hungry. Catherine gives her $1. For Catherine, $1 is not a trivial amount. Her heart pounds. One part of her screams that she should keep it, but another part understands that she is not buying a miracle. She is changing her relationship with herself. She is declaring, fear will no longer make every financial decision for me. The first week, Catherine's income does not change, but she changes. She sleeps a little more peacefully. The constant knot in her stomach loosens. She notices that she has been spending enormous amounts of mental energy rehearsing financial disaster. And as some of that mental noise quiets, she becomes more attentive to the world around her. In the second week, a colleague asks whether she would be willing to type an important document on the weekend for one of his private clients. He offers her $3. It is not a fortune, but it is new money coming through a new channel. Catherine accepts. She does the work carefully. And when she receives the payment, she does not clutch it as though it is the last money she will ever see. She blesses it. Thank you. I receive this with gratitude. I am open to useful work. I am open to right compensation. I am open to more channels of supply. The following week, another opportunity appears. A senior partner needs help organizing correspondence for a charity event his wife is coordinating. The work will bring Catherine an additional $5 per week for several weeks. Again, she accepts. Again, she gives excellent service. Again, she receives without apologizing. And now, an important distinction begins to emerge. Catherine has not become passive. She does not sit in bed chanting about money while refusing work. She responds when opportunity appears. She types. She organizes. She serves. She recommends people. She uses her skill. Spiritual consciousness and practical action begin working together. Within several weeks, her monthly income has risen from $65 to more than $80. It is not yet extravagant wealth, but psychologically, something enormous has happened. For the first time in years, Catherine has evidence that her present salary is not the only possible channel through which supply can reach her. And once the mind sees one new channel, it becomes easier to recognize another. Later, when the firm needs an additional secretary, Catherine recommends a capable friend. Her helpfulness is recognized. Her own permanent salary is increased. Again, circulation creates connection. Connection creates value. Value creates opportunity. And opportunity creates new supply. Her life continues expanding. In this illustrative story, Catherine eventually meets a widower through her church community who owns a small bookshop. Their relationship grows. They marry. She becomes involved in the shop. Over time, she participates in a thriving small business and experiences a degree of financial stability she once could barely imagine. But the deepest transformation is not the marriage. It is not the shop. It is not even the increase in income. The deepest transformation happened before any of those things. Catherine stopped seeing herself as a frightened container trying desperately to keep money from escaping. She began seeing herself as a channel capable of receiving, directing, creating, and circulating value. That is the lesson. Wealth is not merely the amount you can hold. It is also your capacity to remain open and intelligent while money moves. It is the ability to receive without shame, to save without terror, to spend without resentment, to give without self-destruction, to invest without blind greed, to earn without feeling that suffering is the only honorable road to compensation. And above all, it is the ability to remember that one channel closing does not mean infinite intelligence has exhausted every possibility. There are ideas you have not yet had, people you have not yet met, skills you have not yet fully valued, conversations you have not yet begun, opportunities you have not yet recognized, actions you have not yet taken. The road is larger than the part you can presently see. Let this become your thought tonight. I do not need to see the entire road. I need only receive the next clear step. I am guided by divine intelligence. I recognize right opportunities. I take right action with courage. I release money wisely. I receive money gratefully. I allow good to circulate through my life. My hands are open. My mind is open. My heart is open. The river is moving again. And now, as your eyes become heavier, allow yourself to stop working at these words. You do not have to concentrate intensely. You do not have to force yourself to believe every sentence. Just listen. Rest. Let what is useful settle. Let what is not useful pass by. You are safe to relax. You are safe to receive. You are safe to become peaceful around money. And peace is where we begin. There is another burden that keeps many people tied to financial fear. It is the burden of believing that you personally must carry every problem, solve every problem, predict every problem, and control every outcome. You calculate while eating. You calculate while driving. You calculate while trying to sleep. You wake at 3 in the morning and calculate again. How much is due? When is it due? What if that payment is late? What if the car needs repair? What if the client leaves? What if the job disappears? What if something happens? What if? What if? What if? The mind calls this preparation. But after a certain point, it is no longer preparation. It is suffering in advance. There is a great difference between responsible planning and repetitive fear. Responsible planning produces a decision. Fear produces another circle. Responsible planning says, here is what I know. Here is what I can do. Here is what I will do tomorrow. Now I rest. Fear says, keep thinking. There must be something else. Do not sleep. Something terrible may happen if you stop worrying. Tonight, you are allowed to put down what cannot be solved in this moment. This is the essence of what we might call the burden practice. You acknowledge the problem. You do not deny it. Then you separate your responsibility from your fear. You keep the responsibility. You release the fear. You may say, I release the burden of financial worry to divine intelligence. I retain wisdom. I retain responsibility. I retain right action. But I release panic. I release the burden of unpaid bills. Show me the next right step. Open the right way. Bring clarity where I have been confused. I release the burden of debt. Guide me toward wise decisions, right resources, right conversations, and right opportunities. I release fear about the future. I do not need tomorrow's answers tonight. Divine order is active beyond what I can presently see. I go free to rest. Notice the phrase, I go free. Not I pretend the bill does not exist. Not I refuse to look at my finances. Not I wait passively for supernatural intervention. I go free from carrying the emotional weight every minute of every day. You can work on a financial problem without becoming the problem. You can have debt without making debt your identity. You can experience a low bank balance without declaring yourself a failure. You can face uncertainty without worshiping uncertainty. You can say, "This is a condition. It is not my identity. This is a chapter. It is not the whole book. This is a number. It is not my worth." That distinction is freedom. Imagine now that every financial worry you have carried is represented by a heavy stone. One stone is a payment. Another is a debt. Another is an old mistake. Another is your fear about retirement. Another is your concern for your children. Another is a business problem. Another is the memory of losing money. Another is shame. Another is the fear that you are running out of time. Imagine carrying all of them in a large sack across your shoulders. No wonder you are tired. No wonder your body cannot relax. No wonder you sometimes cannot hear intuition. Your own fear is shouting too loudly. Now imagine setting the sack down. You are not abandoning your life. You are simply putting the burden on the ground long enough to remember that you have a mind, a spirit, imagination, experience, relationships, skills, and guidance available to you. Take a breath. Then say, "I cast the burden. I go free. I cast the burden. I go free. I cast the burden. I go free. Tomorrow, I will take the action tomorrow requires. Tonight, I rest." Consider another illustrative story. Imagine Robert, a salesman in Chicago during the difficult years of the Great Depression. Before the economic crash, Robert had done reasonably well. He had earned close to $200 a month. He had a wife, 2 children, a sense that the future, though never guaranteed, was manageable. Then everything changed. His commissions collapsed. Some months he earned $40. Other months, almost nothing. The humiliation became as painful as the lack itself. Robert stopped seeing friends because he could not afford casual social expenses. He stopped attending church because he was embarrassed that he had little to place in the collection plate. He began hiding. That is what shame often does. It isolates. And isolation narrows possibility. When Robert withdrew from people, he did not merely avoid embarrassment. He also reduced conversation, reduced connection, reduced encouragement, reduced the very relationships through which information and opportunity often travel. One evening, his wife gives him a small spiritual book centered on prosperity and the creative use of faith. Robert is skeptical. He does not want inspiration. He wants money. He wants work. He wants groceries. He wants something concrete. But because he loves his wife, he reads. And one concept confronts him: circulation. Robert has been behaving as if every remaining coin is the final coin in existence. He has $1.35 in his pocket. That is all. The frightened mind says, "Guard it. Do not let it move. If you lose this, you have nothing." Then, the next morning, Robert sees a hungry man asking for help. He walks past. That makes sense. He cannot save everyone. He himself is in difficulty. But something inside him keeps pulling his attention backward. He stops. He turns around. He returns. And he gives the man $1. Not because a dollar magically buys $85 from the universe. That would not be generosity. That would be a transaction disguised as spirituality. Robert gives because in that moment, he refuses to let poverty decide what kind of man he is. He says, in effect, "I may have little today, but I am not spiritually empty. I still possess kindness. I still possess choice. I still possess something I can contribute." He hands over the dollar. The man thanks him, and Robert walks away with 35 cents. Yet strangely, he feels richer. Why? Because a moment earlier he had defined himself by what he lacked. Now he has experienced himself as someone capable of giving. That shift in identity matters. Later that same day, Robert visits a potential client he has been trying to reach for weeks. Ordinarily, he might have approached the building burdened by defeat. But today, something is lighter. The receptionist tells him the owner is unavailable. Robert turns to leave. Then, by chance, or timing, or grace, call it what you will, the business owner walks through the door. He recognizes Robert as the salesman who has been trying to reach him. Instead of dismissing him, he invites him into the office. They talk. The conversation becomes a sale. Robert earns an $85 commission. Now pause here. The lesson is not, give $1 and the universe owes you 85. No spiritual law should be reduced to superstition. The deeper lesson is this. Robert moved out of paralysis. His act of generosity changed his internal state. His changed state altered the way he walked into the next opportunity, and life contained possibilities his fear had nearly convinced him did not exist. When he returns home, Robert and his wife bless the money. They make a decision to direct a portion toward helping someone else. They also use the rest responsibly for their family. Giving and stewardship work together. Over the following months, Robert's commissions begin improving. The economy itself has not suddenly healed. He still must sell. He still must meet clients. He still hears no. But he is no longer meeting every no as proof that the universe has rejected him. He keeps moving. He keeps speaking. He keeps serving. He keeps circulating. Within several months, his income has recovered significantly. Within a year, he is doing better than he had been before the crash. And the lesson he carries for the rest of his life is not that money can never leave. It is that fear does not need to become his financial religion. You, too, can release that religion. You can stop worshiping the worst-case scenario. You can stop bowing before an empty number. You can stop assuming every payment is evidence of danger. Sigh, I bless what enters. I bless what leaves. I manage what remains. I prepare wisely for what is ahead. I am not afraid of circulation. I am capable of handling money. I am capable of learning. I am capable of creating more value. I am capable of receiving more value. I am calm enough to recognize my next opportunity. Money is not my master. Money is a tool in my hands. Divine wisdom directs those hands. Now imagine again that river of golden light. See it coming from a source beyond the horizon. You cannot see where it begins. It simply flows. The river enters your life. Some of it becomes income. Some becomes an idea. Some becomes a relationship. Some becomes an opportunity. Some becomes courage. Some becomes a skill. Some becomes a useful warning that prevents a mistake. Some becomes the wisdom to say yes. Some becomes the wisdom to say no. Prosperity is larger than currency. And when you remember that, you stop demanding that every answer arrive in the exact form you expected. Perhaps your next form of supply is an introduction. Perhaps it is a new client. Perhaps it is a better negotiation. Perhaps it is a cost you discover you no longer need. Perhaps it is a refund. Perhaps it is a new skill. Perhaps it is a partnership. Perhaps it is the courage to leave a situation that has been underpaying you for years. Perhaps it is an idea that changes the direction of your work. Perhaps it is simply enough peace to think clearly tomorrow morning. Do not limit divine intelligence by insisting that there is only one door. Sigh, I am open to expected good. I am open to unexpected good. I recognize right opportunities. I recognize right timing. I recognize right people. I recognize right ideas. My intuition becomes clearer as fear becomes quieter. My actions become wiser as my consciousness becomes peaceful. Divine order now governs every part of my life. Now let the body become heavier. Let the bed support you. You do not have to support yourself physically in this moment. Notice that you are already being held. The mattress holds you. The floor holds the bed. The earth holds the building. You are not floating unsupported in space. Allow this physical experience of being held to become a spiritual symbol. I am supported. I am held. I am guided. I do not carry everything alone. And if there is a financial burden that has haunted you for weeks, months, perhaps years, whisper its name inwardly. Then say, I release my terror about this. I ask for wisdom. I ask for right action. I ask for right provision. I ask for peace while the answer unfolds. I am willing to see a solution I have not seen before. I am willing to receive help. I am willing to change my mind. I am willing to change my method. I am willing to change my habits. I am willing to become financially free inwardly while I build financial freedom outwardly. Cast the burden. Go free. Cast the burden. Go free. Cast the burden. Go free. And sleep a little deeper. As the body relaxes, another pattern becomes easier to recognize. The consciousness of lack. Lack consciousness is more than temporarily having less money than you want. It is the internal assumption that there will never be enough. A person may possess very little money without being completely dominated by lack consciousness. Another person may possess millions and still live terrified that everything will disappear. So we are not merely speaking about account balances. We are speaking about the inner atmosphere. The consciousness of lack says, there is never enough. Something is always about to go wrong. Other people get the opportunities. I missed my chance. I am behind. I am too old. I am too young. I do not know the right people. I am not educated enough. I am overqualified. I am underqualified. The economy decides my entire destiny. My past decides my future. Nothing ever works for me. Once these thoughts become habitual, they begin functioning like filters. Imagine wearing dark glasses every day for so long that you forget you are wearing them. Everything appears dark. Eventually you conclude, the world is dark. But perhaps part of what you are seeing is the lens. Changing consciousness is learning to notice the lens. This does not mean denying facts. If your account contains $100, calling it $10,000 does not alter the banking record. Spiritual consciousness is not an excuse to abandon arithmetic. What changes is the meaning you attach to the present fact. One person sees $100 and says, this proves I am doomed. Another sees the same $100 and says, this is my present number. Now, what is the wisest next step? What can I reduce? What can I increase? Who can I contact? What can I learn? What can I offer? What conversation have I been avoiding? What possibility have I dismissed because fear answered before I investigated? The number is the same. The consciousness is different, and consciousness influences action. That is why interchange matters. Think of Margaret. Imagine a 52-year-old widow in the 1930s. Her husband died suddenly. There was no pension waiting, no substantial savings, no insurance sufficient to secure her future. During her marriage, Margaret had devoted herself to managing a household and raising 3 children. Now those children have families and difficulties of their own. They cannot support her. Margaret lives in a tiny rented room. She earns small amounts, mending clothes and cleaning homes. Occasionally, members of her church help. She survives. But internally, something more dangerous than poverty has happened. She has accepted poverty as identity. She no longer says, I am experiencing financial difficulty. She says, this is what my life is now. I am too old. My opportunity has passed. I should have prepared when I was young. No one will hire me. I have no useful experience. Perhaps poverty is simply the lesson God has assigned me. Notice the finality of those statements. When you pronounce a permanent sentence over a temporary condition, you stop looking for doors. Margaret's first transformation is therefore not a job. It is a change of language. She begins each morning before the old thoughts can fully assemble. Before reviewing every problem, before rehearsing her age, before telling herself again what cannot happen, she stands and says, I am richly supplied in wisdom, ability, and opportunity. Divine supply is available to me now. My age does not separate me from right work. My past does not cancel my future. I am guided toward the place where my experience is valuable. At first, the words feel uncomfortable. Her circumstances appear to contradict them. One part of her almost feels embarrassed, but she continues. Not because repetition hypnotizes the universe into obedience, because repetition gives her mind another interpretation to practice. And slowly, her posture changes. She walks differently. Her head rises. She feels less ashamed when entering shops. She stops automatically interpreting every stranger as someone who would reject her. She begins noticing possibilities she previously dismissed before reading the entire sentence. One morning, in a church bulletin, Margaret sees an announcement. A family nearby needs a housekeeper several days a week. They need someone dependable who can manage the rhythms of a home. The old Margaret would have read the advertisement and immediately concluded, they want someone younger. I have no professional experience. I have no resume. Why humiliate myself? But the woman Margaret is becoming asks another question. Why not inquire? She goes to the house. The woman interviewing her hesitates. She had expected a younger applicant with formal domestic employment experience. This is the old moment. The moment when Margaret would once have shrunk. Instead, she recognizes something she had ignored for years. She does have experience, 30 years of it. She managed a household, raised children, planned meals, solved emergencies, organized schedules, maintained a home, cared for people, handled countless invisible responsibilities. That labor had not appeared on a company resume, but it was still skill. And for the first time, Margaret speaks of herself as though her experience has value. She explains calmly that she has been managing a home for decades, that she understands responsibility, discretion, organization, and care. The woman listens, then hires her. The weekly income is modest by some standards. To Margaret, it is a foundation. More importantly, the opportunity repairs something inside her. Evidence has appeared. I am not useless. I am not finished. My experience has value. Within several months, her employer is so satisfied that her pay increases. Then she recommends Margaret to friends. One family becomes two. Two become three. Margaret begins earning far more than she had believed possible. Within a year, she moves from the tiny rented room into a comfortable apartment. Her dignity is returning. Her confidence is growing. And because she now sees her domestic experience as an asset rather than an embarrassment, another idea appears. She can teach other women how to organize households professionally. The very life experience she once called nothing becomes the basis of a small service and training business. That is a profound prosperity lesson. Sometimes supply is hidden inside what you have been undervaluing. You may be asking, what new thing can I get? While divine intelligence is asking, what have you already been given that you have never fully recognized? Your experience, your voice, your taste, your patience, your ability to organize, your ability to explain, your ability to listen, your ability to repair, your ability to design, your understanding of a specific community, your knowledge of a problem you survived, your language, your relationships, your creativity, your discipline, your story, your capacity to make another person's life easier. These are forms of capital too. What have you called ordinary simply because it came naturally to you? What have you dismissed because no one handed you a certificate for it? What have you done for 20 years without realizing that someone else considers it difficult? There may be money hidden inside recognition. There may be opportunity hidden inside self-respect. There may be a new path hidden inside something you have already learned. So tonight, say, nothing useful in my life is wasted. My experience can serve. My abilities can serve. My lessons can serve. My creativity can serve. My wisdom can serve. I am willing to recognize value within myself. I am willing to receive right compensation for right service. I am not too late. The divine has not run out of ideas for me. The way remains open. Margaret's bank balance did not change first. Margaret changed first. Then she was capable of seeing and taking an action the old Margaret would have rejected. This is what is meant by changing the inner cause before demanding that the outer effect change. Your consciousness is not the only factor in every economic event. Life contains circumstances larger than any individual. Markets change. Illness happens. Companies restructure. Injustice exists. Accidents occur. Other people's choices affect us. Spiritual maturity does not require denying any of that. But within every circumstance, there remains a vital question. What consciousness will I bring to this? Fear may be understandable, but must fear be my permanent advisor? Discouragement may visit, but must discouragement become my identity? A closed door may be real, but does one closed door prove there are no doors? No. And now let us speak carefully about sleep. Sleep is not a magical state in which every sentence heard automatically becomes a financial reality. You are not required to believe such an extreme claim. What sleep does give you is something valuable enough without exaggeration. Rest, consolidation, a quieter nervous system, a pause from conscious striving, and the moments before sleep can become a powerful ritual for deciding which thoughts will be the final thoughts you feed before the day ends. If every night ends with, "I am ruined, I am afraid, tomorrow will be terrible," nothing works. You are rehearsing fear at the exact moment you most need restoration. But if the day ends with, "I have done what I can for today, tomorrow I can take another step. I am willing to be guided. I am willing to see possibilities. I release what I cannot solve tonight," you create a different emotional condition in which to rest. That matters. So think of your nightly words as seeds. You do not have to scream at soil. You plant, you water, you return, and then you allow time. The old financial thoughts are like paths through a forest. Perhaps you have walked the path called, "I never have enough" 10,000 times. Of course it feels natural. The mind recognizes it. The body recognizes it. Before you even finish opening a banking app, your stomach may know what emotion to produce. That is conditioning. But a new path can be walked. I can look at my finances calmly. I can make wise decisions. I can create new income. I can ask for help. I can learn. I can negotiate. I can recover from mistakes. I can become more skillful with money. I can receive. I can save. I can have surplus without immediately creating a crisis. I can become financially peaceful. At first, this path feels unfamiliar. That does not mean it is false. It means it is new. Walk it again, and again, and again. Let your nightly declaration become, "I am divinely guided. I am increasingly well supplied. I meet money with wisdom and peace. My mind recognizes opportunities. My intuition guides me toward right action. I sleep without carrying tomorrow in my body. Divine order now governs every part of my life. The way is made clear before me. Tomorrow has its own intelligence. I can rest now. Take a slow breath. Imagine an old path through a dark forest. See the footprints. You know that road. Scarcity, fear, self-criticism, shame, comparison. Now turn your head. There is another path. It is not yet as worn, but light reaches it. Take one step. I am capable. Another. I am guided. Another. I am worthy of right compensation. Another. I am learning. Another. I forgive my mistakes. Another. My age does not define my opportunity. Another. My past does not own my future. Another. I can receive. Another. I can hold. Another. I can grow. Another. The way is made clear. Tonight, you do not need to reach the end of the path. You only need to choose which direction you are rehearsing. And now, rest. There is a point at which wanting change is no longer enough. You must change the cause you are repeatedly feeding. This brings us to another illustrative story. Imagine Thomas, an accountant in Boston near the end of the 1920s. Thomas is not destitute. He has steady work. He earns enough to care for his wife and young son, but he carries a dream. He wants his own accounting practice. He wants independence. He wants to build something that belongs to him. He calculates that he needs approximately $500 to rent a modest office, purchase supplies, and support the first stage of the business. So he begins saving. He reaches $50. An emergency appears. The savings disappear. He starts again. He reaches $60. A medical expense comes. The savings disappear. He starts again. A household repair arrives. Again, the account falls. After several years, Thomas begins forming an identity around the pattern. Every time I get ahead, something happens. That sentence becomes more dangerous than any single expense, because now he is waiting for the next disaster. When savings rise, he does not feel peace. He feels fear. How will this disappear? What will break? What problem is coming? The money is physically present, but emotionally, he has already lost it. Thomas begins a nightly practice. Instead of lying in bed performing the same anxious arithmetic, he speaks another possibility. I am capable of creating a prosperous business. I have more than enough for my present needs and for the growth that is right for me. The resources required for my next step come through right channels. I trust divine supply. I bless what I earn. I bless what I save. I bless what I invest. I am a wise channel of abundance. Then he sleeps. The first week, his bank account does not transform, but Thomas becomes calmer. He stops checking his savings obsessively. He starts enjoying his current work again instead of treating it entirely as an enemy standing between him and the future. That improvement alone changes the quality of his performance. Soon his employer gives him a small bonus for excellent work on a difficult account. $5, not 500. 5. The old Thomas might have said, "That changes nothing." The new Thomas says, "Thank you. This is movement." Then his wife's aunt sends them a $25 gift. Again, not the full answer. But another channel. Thomas continues. 6 weeks later, his savings are higher than they have been in years. And something else is different. He no longer expects an emergency every time the balance grows. That expectation was its own form of psychological poverty. In the 3rd month, a colleague is preparing to leave the accounting firm. The colleague has relationships with 20 businesses that need continuing accounting support. He offers to transfer the client list to Thomas for $200. Thomas does not yet possess $200 in available savings. The fearful response would be immediate. No, impossibly, not enough. But Thomas has been practicing another question. What is the right way? There is a difference. No, closes inquiry. How might this be done wisely? Opens inquiry. Thomas feels a strong, intuitive conviction that this opportunity deserves exploration. So he sleeps on it. He asks for guidance rather than fantasy. Then the next morning he speaks with his employer. He proposes a responsible arrangement. He will service the additional clients outside his normal hours. He will honor his current responsibilities. And in appreciation for everything he has learned at the firm, he is willing to structure the transition transparently. His employer is impressed, not by metaphysics, by initiative, by integrity, by thoughtfulness, and the employer offers to lend Thomas the $200, interest-free, repayable over several months. There is the bridge. It did not appear as $500 dropping from nowhere. It appeared as a relationship, a conversation, trust, a loan, a client base. An opportunity Thomas could not have predicted when he first began affirming. Thomas buys the client list. He serves those businesses in the evenings and on weekends. His income rises. Within several months, the loan is repaid. His savings grow. Within roughly a year, he has accumulated the original $500 he believed he needed. He opens his own accounting office. And his first month as an independent accountant brings him more income than any month he had experienced as an employee. What changed? Many things. His thoughts changed. His nervous system changed. His willingness to explore changed. His conversations changed. His action changed. His ability to recognize opportunity changed. His circumstances changed afterward. This is why we say, consciousness is cause before it becomes visible effect. Not because thought is the only cause in life, but because consciousness influences what you do with nearly every other cause. Fear sees a client list and sees $200 it does not possess. Faith joined with wisdom sees a potential asset and asks how it might be acquired responsibly. Fear says, there is no way, Wisdom says, I do not yet know the way. Those sentences may appear similar. They are worlds apart. So tonight, whenever your mind presents you with a sentence ending in never, soften it. I will never get out of debt. Change it. I do not yet see the complete solution, but I am willing to find it. I will never earn enough. Change it. I am willing to increase my skills, my courage, my service, my visibility, and my ability to receive. No one will ever give me an opportunity. Change it. I remain alert to people, places, conversations, and openings I cannot presently predict. It is too late. Change it. The next right step is available from wherever I am. I ruined everything. Change it. I made mistakes, and I can learn from them. I am not the exception to restoration. Feel the difference. This is not empty optimism. It is refusing to make a temporary condition permanent with your own language. Now release another form of resistance. Resentment. Resentment toward people who have more than you. Resentment toward an employer who paid too little. Resentment toward a partner who handled money badly. Resentment toward parents who could not give you what you needed. Resentment toward an economy that changed. Resentment toward institutions. Resentment toward someone who borrowed and never repaid. Resentment toward yourself. That final resentment can be the deepest. You remember the investment, the purchase, the debt, the opportunity you ignored, the business that failed, the money you lent, the years you believe you wasted. And every time you remember, you punish yourself again. But punishment is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom learns. Punishment repeats pain. If you made a poor decision, learn what the decision has to teach. Then stop requiring yourself to bleed forever in payment for an old mistake. Forgiveness does not mean calling wrong things right. It means refusing to let yesterday continue charging emotional interest. Imagine Eleanor. In this illustrative story, Eleanor has spent 15 years married to a charming but financially reckless man. He makes large promises, takes large risks, starts businesses that fail, borrows, loses, promises again. Eventually, the marriage ends. But Eleanor is left legally responsible for thousands of dollars of debt connected to the financial chaos of those years. She had warned him. She had pleaded. She had feared exactly this outcome. Now the outcome is real. Her anger seems entirely justified. She works 3 jobs. Slowly, she reduces the debt. 7,000 becomes 6. 6 becomes 5. 5 becomes 4. Years pass. Eventually, roughly $2,000 remain. But although the number has fallen, Eleanor's internal debt has grown. She hates her former husband. She hates herself for marrying him. She no longer trusts anyone around money. She is exhausted. And somewhere inside, she has made a vow. I will never forgive this. Notice the cost of never. Her former husband is no longer in the room. Yet every day she gives him emotional occupancy in her mind. He continues controlling her future through the anger she carries. The spiritual instruction Eleanor receives is difficult. Forgiveness. Not reconciliation, not pretending he acted wisely, not saying the harm did not matter. Forgiveness. For 7 nights, Eleanor practices, I release my former husband from my emotional bondage. I release myself from the past. I forgive myself for the choices I made with the understanding I had then. I release blame. I release bitterness. I keep the wisdom. I release the poison. I am free to build a different future. The first night she says the words angrily, the second night through tears, the third night they barely come out. Forgiveness is not always a beautiful feeling. Sometimes forgiveness begins as willingness. I am willing to become willing to release this. That is enough. By the 5th night, Eleanor notices less resistance. By the 7th, something unusual happens. The debt still exists, but for the first time in years, she feels peace. That matters, because now she can think. Now she can breathe. Now every financial decision is not being filtered through rage. In the story, an unexpected communication soon arrives from a lawyer. A relative of her former husband has died and left Eleanor $1,000, partly out of compassion for what she had endured. It covers half of the remaining debt. Over the next several months, small bonuses, refunds, and additional work allow Eleanor to eliminate the rest. Again, do not make superstition from the example. Forgiveness does not guarantee that a lawyer will call next week. That is not the lesson. The lesson is that Eleanor's life stopped being organized around injury. She was free to receive the future without demanding that the future keep proving the past. Eventually, she builds a peaceful life. She later enters another relationship, this time with far greater discernment. Her financial world becomes calmer, and the most important thing she understands is this: forgiving him did not make his actions acceptable. Forgiving him made his actions stop governing her emotional life. That is freedom. Who are you still allowing to govern your financial consciousness? A former partner? An employer? A relative? A business associate? Someone who never paid you? Someone who cheated you? Someone who underestimated you? Or perhaps yourself? Bring that person gently into awareness. You do not need to excuse them. You do not need to contact them. You do not need to reopen a harmful relationship. You simply begin loosening the emotional grip. Sigh. I release you from governing my future. I keep the lesson. I release the bitterness. I forgive myself for what I did not know. I forgive myself for staying too long. I forgive myself for leaving too soon. I forgive myself for trusting the wrong person. I forgive myself for being afraid. I forgive myself for the money I lost. I release the past from my financial identity. I am free to create differently now. Feel your hands. Are they clenched? Open them. Resentment is often like a fist. Receiving requires openness. Now, another habit becomes visible. Complaining. I am always broke. Everything is impossibly expensive. Money disappears the second I get it. I can never afford anything. People like me cannot become wealthy. I will be paying this forever. You may call these observations, but repeat an observation long enough and it becomes identity. The practical teaching is not that you must lie. If something exceeds your budget, you do not need to pretend you can buy it. Use better language. Instead of, I cannot afford anything, sigh. That is not a priority for me right now. Instead of, money always disappears, sigh. I am becoming more intentional about where my money goes. Instead of, I will never get out of debt, sigh. I am building a plan for freedom, one step at a time. Instead of, everything is too expensive, sigh. I choose carefully and direct my resources toward what matters. Language can preserve dignity without denying reality. That is spiritual authority. There is a young man we may call James. He is 23, recently graduated, burdened by student loans, unemployed, living again with his parents. Every application seems to lead to rejection. His frustration becomes conversation. He complains about the economy, complains about employers, complains about his generation, complains about money, complains about living at home. Eventually, his parents give him a challenge. For 30 days, stop rehearsing financial defeat aloud. Not because unemployment is imaginary, because they can see that James is becoming psychologically fused with defeat. The first day is difficult. He almost says, I am so broke. He stops. I am temporarily between opportunities. He almost says, I will never find work. He stops. I have not found the right position yet. He almost says, the entire system is against me. He stops. The market is difficult, and I will keep improving my approach. These statements do not remove the problem. They remove unnecessary poison from the problem. By the third day, James discovers how much of his conversation was built around complaint. Without complaining, there is silence. Into that silence come other subjects: gratitude, ideas, questions, curiosity. By the end of the first week, he feels lighter. Soon, a company that received one of his earlier applications contacts him. An interview follows. Then, Another conversation. Then an offer. The salary is better than he expected for his first professional position. Would the job have existed if James had complained? Perhaps. That is not the point. The point is that James now enters the interview as a man who has spent weeks refusing to rehearse failure. He sounds different. He carries himself differently. He responds differently. He is more available to the opportunity standing in front of him. Your words affect you before they affect anything else. Every sentence is heard by your own nervous system. So for the next phase of your life, become selective. You do not have to become artificial. You do not have to become the person who refuses to acknowledge difficulty. Simply refuse to worship difficulty with repetition. Sigh. I speak the word of faith. I speak the word of wisdom. I speak the word of right action. I speak the word of possibility. My words are filled with power and peace. I do not rehearse poverty. I do not rehearse failure. I do not rehearse catastrophe. I acknowledge the present and speak toward the future. I am guided by divine intelligence. Divine order now governs every part of my life. The way is made clear before me. My mind is receptive. My heart is peaceful. My hands are open. My actions are wise. Money can flow through my life without fear. Money can remain in my life without guilt. Money can grow in my life through stewardship. I can become more prosperous without becoming less loving. I can become more successful without losing myself. My prosperity can bless me and bless others. I release the old story. I bless the present. I welcome the next right step. And tonight, I rest. You have done enough for this moment. The calculations can stop. The old arguments can stop. The accusations can stop. The rehearsals of everything that went wrong can stop. You are allowed to sleep without solving your entire financial future. Divine intelligence remains active even when your conscious mind is quiet. Tomorrow, you can listen. Tomorrow, you can decide. Tomorrow, you can act. Tonight, let these final words settle gently into you. I am not my financial past. I am not my worst mistake. I am not my present balance. I am not the fear I learned. I am a living intelligence capable of learning, creating, choosing, receiving, and growing. My consciousness is changing. My words are changing. My habits are changing. My expectations are changing. My actions are changing. I bless every honest source of supply. I bless every right opportunity. I bless every wise decision. I bless every dollar I earn. I bless every dollar I save. I bless every dollar I direct. I bless every dollar I give freely and wisely. I am a channel, not a dam. I am guided, not abandoned. I am learning, not failing. I am becoming, not finished. The river is moving. The burden is lighter. The old path is fading. The new path is opening. And the way is made clear before me. There is another shift that must happen if abundance is to become more than a beautiful idea. You must stop introducing yourself to life through the identity of lack. This does not mean pretending. It does not mean looking at a small bank balance and declaring that the number is something it is not. It means understanding that a financial condition and a financial identity are not the same thing. You may temporarily have little. That does not mean you are a person destined to have little. You may be between opportunities. That does not mean opportunity has abandoned you. You may be rebuilding. That does not mean you are broken. You may be learning. That does not mean you have failed. This distinction is everything. Because what you repeatedly call yourself, you begin to defend. What you defend, you begin to preserve. And what you preserve inwardly, you often unconsciously reproduce outwardly. Imagine now a schoolteacher named Ruth. Ruth lives in a small Pennsylvania town during the early 1940s. She earns approximately $75 each month. The salary covers very little beyond the necessities: rent, food, clothing, transportation. The school district itself is under financial pressure, so there is little reason to expect a meaningful raise. Ruth is not irresponsible. She is not lazy. She is not careless. She simply lives within a narrow financial channel. And because that channel has remained narrow for years, she has begun confusing the channel with the source. She thinks, this salary is what I have. Therefore, this salary is what life has for me. That is how limitation quietly becomes identity. Ruth begins experimenting with a new morning practice. Before leaving for school, she looks into the mirror, not to admire herself, not to manufacture emotion, but to interrupt the old definition. She says, I am a prosperous woman in consciousness. I am richly supplied with ideas, abilities, relationships, and opportunities. There is more available to me than my present salary. I am open to right and profitable ways of serving. At first, her mind immediately objects. Prosperous? Look at your salary. Richly supplied? Look at your account. More opportunities? Where? But Ruth keeps speaking. Not frantically, not as though she must convince some distant power. She speaks because she is teaching herself another way of seeing. Day after day, something changes. She stops being ashamed of her modest income. She stops comparing herself to people who appear more prosperous. She stops moving through the world as though her financial circumstances are evidence of personal inferiority. Her salary has not yet changed. Her posture has. And then something becomes visible that perhaps would always have been overlooked by the old Ruth. A family in town asks whether she would tutor their daughter privately in reading and writing. 4 hours a week, $10 additional. Ruth accepts. Soon another family hears about her work, then another. Within several months, she is earning $35 additional each month. Think about that carefully. The school district did not give her a raise. The source found another channel. This is one of the most important prosperity lessons you can learn. Never confuse a channel with the source. A job is a channel. A client is a channel. A business is a channel. A spouse may be a channel. A pension is a channel. A customer is a channel. A contract is a channel. An investment is a channel. But when you mentally turn one channel into the entire source of your security, fear begins immediately. What if the company closes? What if the customer leaves? What if the contract ends? What if someone changes their mind? These are reasonable, practical possibilities. But spiritually, your life is larger than one channel. Your capacity to serve can find another outlet. Your intelligence can create another route. Your relationships can lead to another introduction. Your experience can be repackaged. Your skill can be offered differently. An idea can become another stream. Ruth discovers exactly this. Within 6 months, she is earning as much from private tutoring as she is from her teaching position. Then something occurs that would once have seemed impossible. She begins imagining a small tutoring academy. Her knowledge is the same knowledge she possessed before. Her teaching skill is the same skill. But her consciousness has expanded enough to ask a larger question. What else can this ability become? Eventually, Ruth leaves the school system and opens her own small academy. 15 students enroll. Her monthly income rises far beyond what she once earned as a classroom teacher. The important point is not that every teacher should resign. The important point is perception. When Ruth identified entirely with limitation, she could see only the salary schedule placed in front of her. When her identity expanded, she began recognizing value that had always existed in her abilities. The opportunity was not created out of emptiness. It was discovered through a different lens. You may have opportunities near you that are presently invisible for the same reason. Not because you are foolish, not because you are spiritually deficient, simply because consciousness filters perception. When the mind expects rejection, it does not knock. When the mind expects insufficiency, it does not ask. When the mind expects that nobody would pay, it never creates the offer. When the mind believes an ability is ordinary, it does not recognize that someone else may find that ability valuable. Tonight, let that filter change. Sigh, I am willing to recognize value where I previously saw limitation. I am willing to recognize opportunity where I previously saw routine. I am willing to recognize resources already within my reach. I am willing to recognize my own abilities. I am willing to recognize the good that has been hidden by fear. My perception is becoming clear. My intuition is becoming calm. Divine intelligence guide my attention. I see what I need to see. I know what I need to know. I take the next right step. Now imagine a warm, golden light moving gently through your body, not as some force you must control, simply as an image of illumination. Let it move through the mind, through the throat, through the chest, through the stomach, through the hands, and wherever you have stored an old sentence about money, imagine that sentence loosening. I am always behind. Loosen it. Nothing works for me. Loosen it. I missed my chance. Loosen it. I never keep money. Loosen it. People like me do not become prosperous. Loosen it. My income can come only from this one place. Loosen it. Then replace those sentences gently. I have more possibilities than I can presently see. I am guided toward right channels of supply. I recognize valuable opportunities. I am willing to be paid well for useful service. I am becoming peaceful with receiving. I am becoming wise with money. I am becoming available to prosperity. And now we move into a principle that lies very close to the heart of the spiritual philosophy associated with Florence Scovel Shinn, the divine design. Imagine that there is a pattern for your life more intelligent than the frightened plans of the conscious mind. Not a rigid script in which you have no freedom. Not a guarantee that nothing difficult will ever happen, but a deeper alignment between your gifts, your values, your service, your relationships, and the life you are capable of living. You have probably felt moments of this alignment before. A conversation felt unexpectedly right. A decision brought an unusual sense of peace. A door opened with far less struggle than another door you had spent years trying to force. You met someone at exactly the moment a new direction was needed. An idea arrived quietly, but it contained more life than 100 frantic plans. That is what we mean here by divine design. A way that fits. A way that does not require you to betray yourself in order to succeed. A way in which your gifts have somewhere useful to go. A way in which prosperity becomes connected with service, rather than desperate accumulation. The human mind often says, it must happen through this person. It must happen through this company. It must happen by this date. It must happen in exactly this amount. It must look exactly like this. Divine intelligence says, do not reduce infinity to one doorway. There may be another route. There may be a better arrangement. There may be an opportunity you would never have designed because your present imagination does not yet contain it. Your task is not to control every detail. Your task is to become sufficiently quiet to recognize the next right movement. Consider Arthur. Arthur is a gifted violinist living in New York. Music is not simply something he does. It is how he feels most alive. He teaches. He performs in small ensembles. He accepts whatever musical work he can find. Sometimes, he even plays in public places simply to earn enough to continue. Yet year after year, financial stability remains just beyond reach. The bills arrive. Work comes inconsistently. Arthur begins to develop the classic identity of the starving artist. Perhaps this is simply the price of being creative. Perhaps I must choose between art and prosperity. Perhaps success belongs to less talented people with better connections. Perhaps God does not intend music to support me. Eventually, Arthur becomes tired enough to consider giving up completely. He thinks about taking factory work and abandoning music as a profession. But before making the decision, he begins examining something deeper. The desire to make music has not disappeared. Even beneath exhaustion, it remains. And he begins asking, if this gift is truly part of me, is struggle necessarily part of the gift? Or have I confused struggle with devotion? That question changes everything. There are people who believe that if something is meaningful, it must be painful. If you are a serious artist, you must be poor. If you are compassionate, you must sacrifice yourself financially. If you are spiritual, you must not want comfort. If you work hard, Exhaustion proves your virtue. But suffering is not a certificate of authenticity. Arthur begins practicing a new prayer. Infinite intelligence, open the way for the right expression of my life. Release the best within me. Show me the work that belongs to me. Close what is not mine. Open what is mine. I surrender frantic struggle. I choose guidance. I trust that right service has right support. For several days, nothing dramatic happens. But Arthur changes the way he plays. He stops using every musical performance as an audition for survival. He returns to the sound, the instrument, the joy, the reason he loved music before money became tangled around it. Then one afternoon, while walking through Central Park, he encounters an old acquaintance from his conservatory days. They speak. The friend now works with a large radio orchestra, and at that exact time, the orchestra needs a first violinist because another musician has unexpectedly stepped away. Arthur's first reaction is fear. What if I am not ready? What if they reject me? Then another thought appears. If this door belongs to me, I can walk through it without begging it to be mine. If it does not belong to me, another door exists. That is an extraordinary place from which to act. He auditions. Because his identity is not hanging by a thread, he plays more freely. Not perfectly, freely. He receives the position. The salary is approximately 3 times what he had been piecing together from his scattered gigs. It is steady, dignified, creative, and deeply aligned with the gift he feared he would have to abandon. Arthur's breakthrough was not merely a job. It was discovering the difference between forcing and aligning. For years, he had been pounding on whatever doors happened to appear. Now he learned to ask, "Is this my door?" You can ask the same question. Perhaps not every opportunity deserves your pursuit. Perhaps not every dollar is right money. Perhaps not every client deserves access to your time. Perhaps not every partnership belongs in your future. Prosperity is not grabbing everything. Prosperity includes discernment. There are opportunities that pay, but drain you. There are opportunities that flatter you, but lead you away from yourself. There are opportunities that seem smaller, but contain extraordinary growth. There are moments when intuition whispers, "Go," and moments when it whispers, "Wait." The louder fear becomes, the harder this guidance is to hear. So tonight, instead of demanding a specific result, say, "I welcome the divine design of my life. I am guided toward the work that fits me. I am guided toward people who recognize mutual value. I am guided away from what is not mine. I release the need to force. I release the need to chase every door. What belongs to me can meet me through right action and right timing. I listen. I recognize. I act. The way is made clear before me. There may be a better plan than the one I have been trying to force. I am willing to receive it. Let that possibility settle. Perhaps you have been holding one particular plan so tightly that you have mistaken surrender for failure. But surrender can sometimes mean, I still desire the good, but I release my demand concerning the root. That is very different from giving up. Giving up says, there is no good available. Surrender says, the good may arrive differently than I expected, and sometimes differently is better. There is another invisible barrier to prosperity that can survive even after fear begins to soften: unworthiness. You can consciously desire wealth while subconsciously rejecting it. You can say, I want more money, and somewhere deeper whisper, but people with money are selfish. I want success, but successful people lose their values. I want to earn more, but if I earn more than my family, they may resent me. I want to receive, but accepting help makes me weak. I want to charge more, but good people should not care so much about money. I want abundance, but spiritual people should be content with less. When these beliefs coexist, money becomes emotionally complicated. You approach it, then retreat. You earn more, then unconsciously find reasons to get rid of the surplus. You receive an opportunity, then convince yourself you are not ready. You are offered more responsibility and automatically refuse. You undercharge. You overgive. You work without boundaries. You rescue others financially at the cost of your own stability. And because these behaviors can look generous from the outside, the deeper pattern may remain hidden for years. Consider Sarah. Sarah is a nurse, compassionate, reliable, the kind of person who notices suffering before anyone asks. She often stays late, helps families, checks on patients long after others would have gone home. Her life revolves around care. Yet financially, Sarah is almost always struggling. When she provides private nursing care, she charges less than others with similar qualifications. If a family seems stressed about money, she reduces her rate before they even ask. If someone offers her a gift, she refuses it. If a friend offers to buy lunch, Sarah insists on paying for herself even when she cannot afford to. She has turned refusing into virtue. She also repeatedly passes over career opportunities. When leadership positions appear, she says, someone else deserves it more. When people praise her skill, she dismisses it. When money comes unexpectedly, guilt appears. One day, Sarah finally admits the real belief. I feel guilty having money when other people are suffering. Listen carefully to that sentence. It sounds compassionate, but what happens if every compassionate person accepts poverty as proof of goodness? Who then has resources to build hospitals, support charities, fund education, create scholarships, hire people, help families, finance recovery, give freely without entering crisis themselves? Poverty does not automatically make a person virtuous. Wealth does not automatically make a person corrupt. Money amplifies choices. The moral question is not simply, do you have money? The deeper questions are, how was it acquired? How is it managed? What does it permit you to become? What does it enable you to do? Sarah begins understanding that her financial limitation is not helping the people she loves. In fact, it reduces her capacity to help. If she is constantly exhausted and financially frightened, her giving cannot remain joyful. It becomes depletion. She begins practicing a new idea. My prosperity does not take prosperity away from another person. I am allowed to receive for the value I provide. I can be well paid and compassionate. I can be prosperous and generous. I can have more than enough and use that surplus wisely. My well-being increases my capacity to serve. At first, receiving feels almost physically uncomfortable. A colleague offers to buy lunch. Sarah's automatic response rises. No, I cannot let you do that. Then she stops, smiles, and says, thank you. 2 words. But for Sarah, they represent enormous spiritual growth. Thank you. Receiving without defense. Receiving without immediately paying it back. Receiving without proving independence. Soon, a grateful patient offers her a small gift. Again, Sarah's old reflex wants to refuse. She breathes, receives, thanks them sincerely. Then she begins accepting professional opportunities differently. A prestigious private clinic needs a head nurse. The salary is almost double what Sarah currently earns. The old Sarah would have found 10 reasons not to apply. Too much responsibility. Someone else is probably better. What if I fail? The new Sarah asks, am I capable? The answer is yes. Would I serve well? Yes. Then why am I refusing the possibility before life even presents its decision? Sarah applies. She receives the position. And something surprising occurs. Having more money does not make her less generous. It makes generosity easier. She can contribute to an orphanage without worrying whether the donation will make her own rent difficult. She can help a friend facing medical expenses. She can buy groceries for a family in need. She can continue learning professionally. She can travel. She can rest. She can expand. Sarah learns a vital truth. Receiving and giving are not enemies. They are 2 halves of circulation. If you know only how to give and never how to receive, circulation is incomplete. If you know only how to receive and never how to give, circulation is incomplete. If you spend everything that arrives, circulation is unbalanced. If you hoard everything from terror, Circulation is constricted. There is rhythm, receiving, giving, saving, investing, enjoying, serving, planning, resting, growing. Money needs more than movement. It needs intelligent movement. So say tonight, it is safe for me to receive. It is safe for me to be well compensated. It is safe for me to possess surplus. It is safe for me to save. It is safe for me to invest. It is safe for me to prosper. My prosperity does not make me less spiritual. My prosperity gives me more choices about how I serve. I receive with gratitude. I use with wisdom. I give with love. I am worthy of good because I am willing to use good well. I do not need to prove my worth by suffering. I do not need to prove my goodness through deprivation. There is room in my life for peace, beauty, comfort, generosity, and financial strength. And if the word worthy creates resistance, soften it. Do not fight yourself. Sigh. I am learning to feel safe with more. That may be enough tonight. I am learning to feel safe with more. More income, more support, more responsibility, more savings, more visibility, more opportunity, more ease. Some people are not afraid of losing money. They are afraid of what having money would mean. Would your family still accept you? Would your friends think you had changed? Would you become greedy? Would you lose your humility? Would people constantly ask you for help? Would success separate you from the person you have always been? These fears can create a hidden ceiling. You may rise toward the ceiling, then unconsciously return to the level that feels emotionally safe. This is why wealth consciousness includes safety. You must become safe, not only receiving money, but keeping it. Sigh. I am safe to keep good. I am safe to build good. I am safe to expand. I remain myself as I prosper. My character is not controlled by my bank account. Money does not define me. Money gives my values more room for expression. I choose integrity. I choose wisdom. I choose generosity. I choose healthy boundaries. I choose abundance with peace. Now let the body relax again, especially the hands. Open the fingers slightly. Feel the symbolism. An open hand can receive. An open hand can give. An open hand can hold without crushing. That is the financial consciousness we are developing. Not empty hands. Not clenched hands. Open hands. There is another story that illustrates the importance of persistence. Imagine Daniel. Daniel is 45 when the economic crash of 1929 destroys nearly everything he has built. His business collapses. His savings vanish. He loses his home. He finds himself living in a small boarding room with almost none of the external markers by which he previously measured himself. Daniel is not merely grieving money. He is grieving identity. Who am I if I am no longer the businessman? Who am I if the company is gone? Who am I if the house is gone? Who am I when the world sees me as someone who failed? At 45, he convinces himself he is too old to begin again. He has seen younger men entering new industries. He has watched entire markets change. And one thought returns relentlessly. My chance is over. Eventually, as almost a final experiment, Daniel begins working with a simple nightly statement. He does not insist on rebuilding the exact business he lost. He says instead, I have a wonderful business in a wonderful way. I give excellent service. I receive excellent compensation. The right work is revealed to me. The right place is revealed to me. The right people are revealed to me. He writes the words on a card, keeps them near his bed, carries them in his wallet, reads them in the morning, repeats them as he becomes sleepy. Days pass. Nothing. Weeks pass. Still the boarding room. Still little money. Still uncertainty. But Daniel continues. Why? Because even before the outer world changes, the words are beginning to alter his relationship with the future. He stops saying, my life is over. He begins saying, I do not yet know the form of my next success. That single word yet creates space. One night he dreams vividly about a certain commercial street. In the dream, he sees a small shop. His name appears above it. When he wakes, the image remains unusually clear. Now, we do not need to treat every dream as prophecy. Some dreams are simply dreams. But intuition often communicates through images, feelings, impressions, memories, and unusual curiosities. Daniel decides the image is worth investigating. He visits the street. There is, in fact, an empty storefront. A sign hangs in the window, for rent. Daniel does not have enough money to lease the property conventionally. The old Daniel would have stopped at the glass. No money, no possibility. But the new Daniel has spent weeks training himself to ask another question. What is possible here? He goes inside. He speaks with the owner. During the conversation, an unexpected connection emerges. The landlord knew Daniel's father many years ago and remembers him with respect. Daniel explains that he lost his previous business, but has a clear idea for a different kind of enterprise. The landlord listens, then offers something Daniel could not have planned. 3 months in the space without rent, allowing him time to establish the business. That is the open door. Not a bag of money. Not a miraculous check. An arrangement. A relationship. Timing. Trust. An opening. Daniel begins again. The new business is different from the one he lost. That difference matters. Before the crash, much of Daniel's work had been driven by pressure and ambition. He wanted to become bigger because bigger seemed to prove worth. The new business begins from another foundation. Service, usefulness, integrity, a genuine understanding of customers. Within a year, he is stable. Within several years, his new prosperity exceeds what he had possessed before. But Daniel is not the same man. He no longer sees money as proof that he has won. He sees money as one expression of good service. And because his identity is no longer completely dependent on the number, he makes wiser decisions with the number. This is what you are rebuilding tonight, not merely income, foundation. If financial prosperity is built upon terror, prosperity itself becomes stressful. You spend every successful month afraid it will be the last. You watch every competitor obsessively. You distrust every employee. You panic when the market moves. You cannot enjoy what you have because you are already rehearsing its disappearance. A foundation of fear can turn wealth into another form of poverty. So tonight, rebuild from another material. Faith, wisdom, service, clarity, circulation, discernment, gratitude, self-respect, healthy boundaries, right action. Sigh, my prosperity rests on a stable foundation. I do not need panic in order to succeed. I do not need exhaustion in order to deserve income. I do not need fear in order to become responsible. I build through value. I build through wisdom. I build through right relationships. I build through disciplined action. I build from peace. Now scan your body once more. Yeah, relax. Shoulders, lower them. Chest, open. Stomach, soften. Hands, release. The body has learned financial fear too. You may notice it before the mind even begins speaking. A bill arrives and the stomach tightens. A banking notification appears and the chest contracts. Someone mentions an expensive repair and the shoulders rise. This bodily reaction is not weakness. It is conditioning, and conditioning can be met with awareness. The next time financial fear enters your body, do not immediately add a catastrophic story. Pause, feel your feet, breathe, then ask, what is actually happening right now? What do I know? What action is required? What action is not required yet? What would wisdom do next? This is how panic loses authority. Wisdom is calm. Fear is loud. Wisdom says, let us look. Fear says, do not look. Wisdom says, here are the numbers. Fear says, everything is ruined. Wisdom says, make the call. Fear says, hide. Wisdom says, ask the question. Fear says, they will reject you. Wisdom says, find out. Return to wisdom. Return to choice. Return to the river. Now, Let us make the law of circulation more practical, because a spiritual teaching that never enters behavior remains only an interesting thought. Money must circulate, but circulation does not mean chaos. It does not mean spending recklessly and calling it faith. It does not mean giving money you need for food in order to force a return. It does not mean refusing to save because the universe will provide. Circulation is rhythm. There is an inhale, there is an exhale. Try only inhaling. It becomes impossible. Try only exhaling. Also impossible. Healthy financial life has both. Receive, release, receive, retain, direct, grow, enjoy, give. The rhythm may change depending on your circumstances, but the principle remains. Imagine a man named Luis. Luis works in a warehouse. The job is steady. The hours are long. He loves his family deeply. And because he loves them, he worries constantly. Every month seems to contain another financial test. Rent, food, transportation, school expenses, repairs, something unexpected. Eventually, Luis develops what he thinks is a responsible habit. He checks his bank balance constantly, morning, lunch, afternoon, evening, before buying anything, after buying anything, before bed, sometimes in the middle of the night. He imagines that vigilance will protect him. But every time Luis opens the app, the same bodily reaction occurs. Stomach tightens, breath shortens. One thought, not enough. Then another, be careful. Another, something is coming. Another, do not spend. Luis has confused awareness with hypervigilance. Awareness is useful. Hypervigilance exhausts. One evening, his sister sends him an audio about blessing money as it moves. Luis almost ignores it. He is tired of advice, tired of being told to think positively, tired of anything that suggests another task. But he listens. One idea remains with him. Stop treating money as an enemy. That night, he thinks about the phrase. The next day, Luis buys groceries. The old reaction arrives immediately. Too expensive. There goes more money. He stops, looks at the bags. Food for his family. Instead of resenting the transaction, he says quietly, "Thank you for the ability to feed my family. I release this payment in peace." This money has done useful work. He is not denying the price. He is changing the emotional meaning. Later, he pays the electricity bill. Again, he breathes. "Thank you for light. Thank you for power. I direct this payment in peace. I remain open to supply." During the first days, nothing dramatic changes externally. Internally, Luis notices something extraordinary. He does not need to check his balance every hour. He begins sleeping more deeply. He becomes more present with his children. His wife notices that he laughs again. And because his nervous system is no longer scanning constantly for disaster, small, practical opportunities begin receiving his attention. A colleague wants to exchange shifts. Normally, Luis might have declined automatically, but the exchange gives him access to overtime he could rarely take. He accepts. A utility company issues a refund connected to an old overpayment. His child's school announces financial assistance for families that submit an application before a certain deadline. In the past, discouragement might have caused Luis and his wife to assume they would not qualify. This time, they apply. They receive the reduction. Notice again, none of these events require magical explanation, but each represents something important. When panic decreases, participation increases. You read the letter. You submit the form. You answer the call. You ask. You negotiate. You notice. You respond. You stop making decisions before the facts arrive. Luis eventually realizes, my money did not only change, my relationship with money changed. And because my relationship changed, my behavior changed. Because my behavior changed, more money began staying. This is a crucial distinction. Money flow is not simply how much enters your life. Money flow includes what happens after it arrives. Suppose you earn $5,000 more this year. If unconscious fear creates 5,000 of unnecessary leakage, income increased, but wealth did not. Suppose you receive a raise. If every increase triggers an automatic increase in spending because holding surplus feels uncomfortable, the raise never becomes stability. Suppose you earn well, but avoid bills until late fees accumulate. Money is flowing in, but financial consciousness is still chaotic. This brings us to Nadine. Nadine is a talented hairstylist. She has clients. Her calendar is full. People recommend her. From the outside, everyone assumes she must be doing well, but Nadine is perpetually behind. A strong week comes. Then the money disappears. A strong month comes. Then another emergency. She calls it bad luck. Until one day she looks closely at her patterns, and she discovers something uncomfortable. Not everything she calls an emergency is an emergency. Some of it is emotional spending. When Nadine feels stressed, she orders food she could have prepared at home. When she feels lonely, she shops online. Not extravagantly, just small purchases. A few dollars here, $20 there. When she feels overwhelmed, she avoids opening bills, then pays late charges. When business is good, she feels relief and spends quickly. When business is slow, she feels fear and sometimes spends to comfort herself. Money is being used as emotional anesthesia. This does not make Nadine a bad person. It makes her human. People use spending for many reasons: celebration, comfort, status, boredom, avoidance, belonging, control, reward. Sometimes the purchase is less about the object than about the state we hope the object will produce. Nadine introduces one simple practice. Before non-essential spending, she pauses. One breath, then asks, is this choice coming from clarity or emotional urgency? Not, am I allowed to buy this? Not, am I a good person if I buy this? Not shame. Awareness. If the answer is clarity, she proceeds without guilt. If the answer is urgency, she gives herself 10 minutes. Sometimes after 10 minutes, she still buys it. Sometimes the urge disappears, but the trance has been interrupted. That interruption changes everything. Late fees fall because she opens bills on time. Impulse purchases decrease. Food spending becomes more intentional. And for the first time in years, she notices money remaining at the end of the week. No miracle was required. Consciousness revealed leakage. Awareness corrected behavior. Behavior created surplus. Then Nadine does something symbolically powerful. She opens a savings account. Instead of naming it emergency fund, she calls it flow. Why? Because she does not want saving to feel like fear. She wants saving to feel like circulation toward her future. Each week, she places something into the account, sometimes a significant amount, sometimes very little, and she says, this money is flowing into my peace. This money is flowing into my freedom. This money is flowing into future opportunity. Saving is circulation too. Investing is circulation too. Putting money toward debt reduction is circulation. Education is circulation. Maintenance is circulation. Not all flowing money must leave your ownership immediately. Some money flows from present, you toward future. That is sacred circulation too. As Nadine becomes calmer, another development occurs. One of her clients owns a wedding planning company. She asks Nadine to become a preferred stylist for brides. That relationship creates an entire new stream of income. Another client encourages Nadine to teach beginner styling classes. She tries, discovers she loves teaching. Another stream begins. Month by month, Nadine stops being the person constantly trying to catch up. She becomes the person who builds. And the core insight is simple. I thought my problem was only that I did not earn enough. But part of my problem was that my fear decided what happened to money after I earned it. When the fear changed, the pattern changed. Let this become part of your own financial consciousness. Receiving is safe. Saving is safe. Responsible spending is safe. Generous giving is safe. Wise investing is safe. Looking at numbers is safe. Opening bills is safe. Making a plan is safe. Asking for help is safe. Changing a habit is safe. I can have money without drama. I can direct money without fear. I can make a mistake and correct it. I can become more skilled. I can become a calm steward of abundance. Now place one hand gently over the center of your chest if that feels comfortable. Breathe. Imagine speaking to the part of you that has tried to protect you through financial anxiety. Do not attack it. Sigh. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. You learned fear for a reason. But we have new tools now. You can rest. I can look at money without panic. I can make decisions slowly. I can ask for guidance. I can say no. I can wait. I can save. I can receive. I am safe enough to become financially peaceful. Let that part of you hear the words, no force, no war. The goal is not to destroy your protective instincts. It is to teach them that prosperity does not require constant alarm. There is yet another hidden pattern that affects what happens when money begins to accumulate. Think of it as an internal thermostat. A thermostat does not care whether the temperature briefly rises or falls. It has a setting. When the room moves away from that setting, the system activates to bring it back. People often have a financial version of this, a level that feels normal, a level that feels like me. A person whose internal setting is scarcity may briefly receive large amounts of money and then unconsciously return to scarcity. Another person whose internal setting is stability may experience a temporary loss and immediately begin rebuilding. The difference is not destiny. It is familiarity. What feels familiar often feels safe, even when it is painful. Imagine Victor. Victor is an exceptionally skilled carpenter. He builds beautiful furniture, custom cabinets, intricate woodwork. People respect his craftsmanship. He has clients. He charges reasonable rates. Yet Victor remains almost permanently near zero. Whenever a large payment arrives, an expense seems to follow. Truck repairs, new tools, family needs, home repairs. Month after month, year after year, Victor returns to the same financial level. He calls this bad luck. Then he encounters an uncomfortable question. What amount of prosperity actually feels safe for you to keep? Victor's first reaction is anger. What do you mean? Of course I want money. But in quiet reflection, something surfaces. Victor grew up believing that rich people were greedy. He takes pride in being a working man, honest, humble, connected to ordinary people. And in his subconscious imagination, becoming wealthy means betraying that identity. If I become rich, maybe I become like them. If I have too much, maybe people think I am better. If I save too much, perhaps I become selfish. So Victor consciously wants wealth, while unconsciously protecting himself from becoming what he associates with wealth. His mind solves the conflict in a predictable way. Earn enough to survive. Never keep enough to trigger guilt. This is his thermostat. Victor begins changing the definition. Instead of, wealth makes people greedy, he asks, can wealth make generosity more powerful? Instead of, a humble man should not have too much, he asks, can I remain humble and become financially strong? Instead of, more money would separate me from my roots, he asks, could more money allow me to serve those roots? Victor starts imagining surplus differently. With extra money, he could help his nephew attend trade school. He could hire young apprentices. He could support the local community center. He could purchase better tools and create better work. He could build a business that provides employment. Suddenly, wealth is no longer moral corruption. Wealth becomes capacity. That word changes him. Capacity. The capacity to choose. The capacity to prepare. The capacity to help. The capacity to invest. The capacity to employ. The capacity to rest. The capacity to say no to degrading work. The capacity to support people without destroying yourself. Victor begins saying each night, I am safe to be prosperous. My prosperity blesses the people around me. I am safe to keep money. I am safe to build money. I am capable of managing surplus responsibly. Having more does not make me less humble. Having more gives me greater capacity to express what I value. The old internal arguments continue for a while, but Victor does not fight them. He simply keeps choosing the new definition. Then a client who appreciates his craftsmanship recommends him to a developer. The developer is constructing 20 housing units. He needs custom woodwork. Victor receives a contract worth more than he normally earns in 6 months. Here is the critical moment. Previously, large income would have triggered unconscious expectation. Something will happen. Something will break. I will lose this. But now Victor practices another state. This money is safe with me. I will steward it. He sets aside taxes. He creates reserves. He replaces tools intentionally instead of reactively. He saves. He plans. He does not create a crisis just because surplus feels unfamiliar. The money stays, then grows. Within 2 years, Victor has savings, investments, a larger workshop, 3 apprentices. He supports his nephew's training, contributes to the community, employs people. Wealth did not destroy the working man. It expanded the working man's reach. This is the thermostat shift. So ask yourself tonight, what amount of money feels normal to me? Not what amount do I want. What amount feels normal? When my balance rises, do I become excited or uncomfortable? Do I immediately think of things to spend it on? Do I expect someone to need it? Do I create a reason it cannot remain? Do I feel guilty when I have more than people around me? Do I believe I must hide success to remain loved? Do I believe having savings means I am withholding from others? Do I feel safer with struggle because struggle is familiar? There is no shame in the answer. Shame would only create another block. Awareness is enough. Sigh. I release my old ceiling. I release my old agreement with just enough. I release the belief that struggle makes me worthy. I release the belief that prosperity separates me from love. I release the belief that surplus is dangerous. I am safe to have more than enough. I am safe to keep more than enough. I am safe to manage more than enough. I am safe to share from more than enough. My prosperity is peaceful. My prosperity is responsible. My prosperity is generous. My prosperity is wise. My prosperity reflects who I choose to be. I remain grounded as I grow. I remain loving as I prosper. I remain discerning as opportunities expand. I do not lose myself in abundance. I become more fully able to express my best self through abundance. Now let those words become softer. You do not need to repeat them loudly. You are nearing the quiet part of the night, the part where words can become almost like waves. I am safe to receive. I am safe to keep. I am safe to grow. I am safe to prosper. I am safe to receive. I am safe to keep. I am safe to grow. I am safe to prosper. There is no race. There is no emergency. No one is asking you to become someone else before morning. We are simply teaching the mind that a new level of peace is possible. Your financial future does not need to reproduce your financial past. Your next chapter does not owe loyalty to an old identity. You may change. You may learn. You may become more skillful. You may charge differently. You may earn differently. You may save differently. You may speak differently. You may choose different relationships. You may ask for more. You may say no. You may build something. You may rebuild something. You may begin again. And you may do all of that without hatred for the person you were before. The old you was doing the best it understood. Bless that version. Then move forward. Sigh. Thank you for bringing me this far. I release you from carrying me farther. A new consciousness leads now. Faith leads. Wisdom leads. Divine intelligence leads. Right action follows. And the way is made clear before me. For tonight, that is enough. You do not need to see the whole future. You need only remain open to the next true step. Rest now. The river does not need to hurry to reach the sea. It moves. And because it moves, it arrives. There is a deeper principle beneath everything we have explored tonight. A principle that asks you to stop measuring possibility only by what is visible in this moment. You look at the account. You look at the bills. You look at the salary. You look at the debt. You look at the market. And naturally, the conscious mind begins forming conclusions. There is not enough. There is no way. This will take years. I have gone too far. I missed my opportunity. But the visible condition is not the whole field of possibility. It is simply the present picture, a photograph of what has already been created through previous decisions, previous circumstances, previous habits, previous opportunities, and previous beliefs. A photograph is not the future. So when we speak of abundance, while present circumstances still appear limited, we are not required to deny facts. We are choosing not to make those facts prophetic. There is a tremendous difference. You can look directly at a debt and say, yes, this exists, and I am still moving toward freedom. You can acknowledge unemployment and say, yes, this is my present condition, and I remain available to useful work. You can acknowledge a small balance and say, this is the number today. It is not the final measure of my capacity. That is the true spiritual use of affirmation, not escape, dirección, not fantasy, orientación. The mind needs a direction. If you do not deliberately give it one, it will usually choose the direction suggested by fear. So give it another. I am moving toward greater supply. I am becoming more skillful. I am becoming more receptive. I am learning to recognize opportunity. I am building stability. I am creating surplus. I am becoming a peaceful and intelligent steward of money. The present may not yet reflect all of this. That is all right. A seed does not resemble the tree, yet the tree is already implied within the seed. Imagine now a woman named Isabel. She is in her early 50s. For 25 years, she devoted herself primarily to her home and marriage. Then the marriage ended, and it ended badly. The financial security she assumed would be there disappeared. Her former husband had concealed assets. There were no meaningful savings in her name. Her parents had already passed away. Her family network was small. And suddenly, after decades of living one kind of life, Isabel had to begin again with almost nothing. She rents a small room. At night, she cleans offices. The work is honest, but the income barely covers the basics. What hurts most is not simply the lack of money. It is invisibility. For years, she had defined herself through family. Now she feels as though society looks through her. She thinks, who will hire a woman my age with no resume? What do I have to offer? Where do I even begin? One evening, she finds an old book about spiritual prosperity in a neighborhood book box. She takes it home, not because she expects revelation, because it costs nothing, and because the room is lonely. As she reads, one idea unsettles her. Do not let circumstances pronounce the final word. Your outer life may be showing one condition. Your inner word can begin preparing another. Isabel almost laughs. What inner word? I have nothing. But something in her is tired of repeating that sentence. So she tries another. At night, lying in the narrow bed of that rented room, she whispers, I am richly supplied. Divine intelligence, guide me. There are useful opportunities available to me. My life can begin again. I am open to being seen. I am open to being valued. I am open to receiving. At first, she feels foolish. The words seem much larger than the room, but she keeps going. Every night, during the day, fear rises. She answers, this feeling is real, but it is not prophecy. I am still supported by life. There is still good I cannot yet see. For 2 weeks, her employment remains exactly the same. Yet something subtle happens. Isabel notices kindness again. A co-worker shares lunch. Someone holds the door. A beautiful sunset catches her attention after a long shift. She realizes that depression had narrowed her vision so dramatically that almost nothing entered except evidence of despair. Now little things are getting through. That may seem unrelated to money. It is not. The capacity to notice good is also the capacity to notice opportunity. In the third week, the manager of the office building asks whether Isabel would like several additional hours each week managing supply inventory. It is not glamorous, but it requires organization. And organization is something Isabel has done for decades. She accepts. There is a small increase in pay. Then one evening, she begins talking with a woman who rents an office in the building. The woman runs a small consulting company. They speak several times. Over time, she notices Isabel's reliability, calmness, and attention to detail. Eventually, she asks, "Would you be interested in helping me part-time with scheduling, correspondence, and basic administrative work?" The pay is much higher than cleaning. Isabel almost says, "I am not qualified." Then she remembers the new identity she has been practicing. She asks instead, "Can I learn what I do not yet know?" Yes. Am I organized? Yes. Am I dependable? Yes. She accepts. Now 2 income channels exist. Several months later, the consulting company expands. The owner offers Isabel full-time employment, benefits, regular hours, more responsibility, more dignity. Within 6 months, Isabel leaves the rented room and moves into a small apartment of her own. A year earlier, she had believed life had ended. Now she has keys in her hand, and those keys mean more than housing. They mean, I began again. The business continues growing. And because Isabel has become indispensable, she is eventually offered a deeper role in the company, with participation in its profits. Look at the sequence. There was no single dramatic windfall, a small opening, then another, then another. The road revealed itself one step at a time. This is often how abundance arrives, not as one giant answer, as a chain of correct movements. One conversation, one introduction, one skill recognized, one decision, one application, one yes, one new responsibility, one door, creating another door. So if you are waiting for a single, enormous miracle, perhaps broaden your attention. Do not overlook the first small door because it does not resemble the final destination. A small opportunity can contain a large future. Sigh. I respect small beginnings. I recognize useful openings. I do not despise the first step because it is smaller than my dream. Divine intelligence can lead me through a sequence I could never plan completely. I move when guidance becomes clear. I remain open to the next right door. Now, imagine yourself beside a river of golden light. You have seen this river before tonight, but this time, notice something new. You are not standing beside it begging the water to notice you. The river is already flowing. The question is whether you are willing to enter. For a long time, perhaps you stood on the shore, watching, planning, wondering whether you were worthy, waiting for permission. Tonight, give yourself permission. Step closer. Feel the warm light around your feet. You do not need to dive into something overwhelming. One step is enough. Another. The water rises to the knees. Old fear begins washing away. Another. The water rises to the waist. The chest loosens. The breathing becomes deeper. Then you allow yourself to float. You do not disappear. You do not lose control of your life. You simply discover that not everything requires strain. You can be supported and still responsible. You can trust and still act. You can flow and still choose direction. The river carries you gently toward people, toward ideas, toward useful work, toward clarity, toward wisdom, toward a better relationship with money itself. And as you float, say, I am in the flow of divine supply. I am available to right opportunities. I am available to right compensation. I receive with gratitude. I release with peace. I save with wisdom. I invest with intelligence. I give with joy. I am becoming a clean channel for prosperity. My financial life is becoming calmer, clearer, stronger, more orderly. I no longer need chaos to feel normal. I no longer need fear to feel responsible. I no longer need struggle to feel deserving. The river can move, and I can move with it. There is one word many hardworking people find surprisingly difficult: allow. They understand effort. They understand discipline. They understand responsibility. They understand waking early, working late, doing more, trying harder. But allowing? Allowing sounds suspicious. It sounds like laziness. It sounds like surrendering ambition. It sounds like giving up control. And because of this, many people unconsciously believe, if I stop pushing for even one moment, everything will collapse. That belief creates enormous exhaustion. Imagine Priya, brilliant, ambitious, capable. From childhood, she learned that achievement came through relentless effort. Rest was for people who lacked discipline. If someone succeeded, it was because they outworked everyone else. So Priya carries that philosophy into adulthood. 80-hour weeks, late-night emails, meals eaten while working, constant availability, vacation days unused, relationships postponed, health ignored, and financially, Priya does reasonably well. That makes the pattern harder to question. The strategy appears to work until it stops working. Her income reaches a plateau. No matter how much additional effort she adds, the result barely changes. 10 extra hours produce almost nothing. 20 extra hours make her less creative. She begins making mistakes. Her body starts protesting. Sleep becomes difficult. The achievement system that once carried her is now consuming her. Then she encounters a disturbing idea. Perhaps effort has become fear. Perhaps what began as discipline has turned into compulsion. Perhaps there is a point where doing more stops creating more. Priya does not like this idea, but she is exhausted enough to experiment. For 1 month, she decides to work normal hours, to sleep properly, to stop answering every message instantly, to give her mind space. And each night she repeats, I allow divine intelligence to guide my work. I allow useful opportunities to reach me. I do not need to force every outcome. I work with clarity. I rest without guilt. I am open to efficient, elegant, profitable ways of serving. At first, resting feels more stressful than working. She sits on the couch and thinks about email. She goes to bed and imagines what everyone else is accomplishing. The body is resting. The mind is still running. But gradually, the nervous system learns something. Nothing collapses. Clients do not abandon her because she sleeps. Her talent does not disappear because she rests on Sunday. Her worth does not drop because she closes the laptop. Then an unexpected consulting opportunity arrives through someone in her wider professional network. Priya did not chase it. Someone remembered her work. The contract pays the equivalent of several months of her usual salary for a relatively short period of focused effort. Soon she is invited to speak at a conference. That event leads to additional paid speaking work. What changes most is not the money. Priya realizes she had confused motion with effectiveness. She had assumed that if 1 hour produced value, 20 hours must produce 20 times the value. But intelligence does not always work linearly. One right idea may be worth months of random activity. One strong relationship may be more valuable than 100 cold messages. One clear offer may outperform constant scattered promotion. One rested mind may solve what an exhausted mind cannot even see. Allowing does not mean refusing action. It means leaving room for intelligence to participate. It means refusing to drown intuition under endless activity. It means asking, what actually matters today? What action creates the most value? What can be released? What am I doing only because fear says I must keep moving? There is great prosperity in subtraction. Fewer distractions, fewer unnecessary commitments, fewer low-value tasks, fewer frantic decisions, more clarity, more presence, more energy directed toward what truly matters. Sigh. I allow my good to reach me through intelligent action. I release unnecessary struggle. I work with purpose. I rest with trust. I do not confuse exhaustion with worthiness. I do not confuse busyness with prosperity. Divine intelligence shows me the effective way. I am available to ease without becoming careless. I am available to success without self-destruction. I allow, I allow, I allow. And now, we come again to the creative power of language. The words you repeat do something immediately before anything mysterious happens. They shape your attention. They influence your emotion. They affect the way you interpret what happens next. Speak defeat all day, and the mind becomes exceptionally skilled at locating evidence of defeat. Speak possibility, and possibility becomes easier to notice. This is why careless financial language deserves your attention. Imagine Samuel. Samuel drives a taxi. Long shifts, heavy traffic, unpredictable passengers, rising fuel costs. Small tips. He is tired. And Samuel has developed one main coping mechanism: complaint. He complains about traffic, passengers, the city, the weather, gas prices, politicians, his employer, other drivers, money, life. The complaints feel harmless. They are simply how he gets through the day. But repetition has turned them into atmosphere. Everything Samuel notices confirms the same worldview. Life is difficult. People are selfish. Money is hard. Nothing goes right. One day, an older woman enters his taxi. Samuel begins his usual monologue. After several minutes, she gently interrupts him. She asks, "Do you realize how many times you have spoken against your own peace in the last 5 minutes?" The question surprises him. She continues, "Perhaps for 1 week, speak differently. Not because traffic disappears. Not because every passenger becomes pleasant, but because you have to live inside your own words." Samuel does not appreciate the suggestion. Yet that night he remembers something his grandmother used to say: "If you have nothing useful to say, silence is better." So he tries. 7 days without habitual complaining. The first day is miserable. Traffic slows. His mouth is already forming the sentence. "This city is impossible." He stops. A passenger is rude. Samuel wants to complain for the next 20 minutes. He stops. Fuel prices rise. He wants to curse. He stops. There is suddenly a great deal of silence. And in that silence, he begins seeing things his complaint filter had excluded. A child laughing on the sidewalk, sunlight reflecting between tall buildings, a passenger who is nervous and simply needs patience, a song he likes on the radio, a beautiful evening sky. The city did not suddenly become perfect. Samuel's attention became less imprisoned. By the 5th day, passengers notice the difference. Conversations are warmer. People feel more relaxed in the taxi. A customer gives him a large tip and thanks him for making a difficult day easier. By the end of the week, tips are unusually strong. Samuel continues the practice. He does not become someone who denies problems. He becomes someone who refuses to turn every inconvenience into a declaration of misery. Instead of, "This traffic is destroying my day," he says, "I will move through this as efficiently as I can." Instead of, "Nobody tips anymore," he says, "I appreciate generous passengers." Instead of, "I will never get ahead," he says, "I am steadily improving my financial position." His mood changes. Passenger interactions change. His tips improve. He saves. Eventually, he purchases his own vehicle, then another. Over time, he builds a small transportation business. Did words alone purchase the cars? No. Words altered the man who made the decisions, and the man created different results. That is power enough. So guard your language, especially repeated language. One frustrated sentence is not destiny, but a sentence rehearsed every day can become identity. Listen for phrases such as, "I always," "I never," use "nothing ever," "people like me," "money always." Those sentences often contain hidden agreements. Challenge them. Instead of, "I always lose money," sigh, "I am learning to keep and manage more of what I earn." Instead of, "I never get good opportunities," Sigh. I am becoming more alert and courageous when opportunities appear, instead of nothing ever works. Sigh. Some approaches have not worked, and I am willing to try wiser ones. Instead of money is impossible. Sigh. Money requires learning, patience, value, and wise action, and I am capable of all four. Your word becomes cleaner, more accurate, more useful, more creative. Now let gratitude enter. Not forced gratitude. Not pretending you enjoy difficulty. Specific gratitude. Look gently around your life. 5 things. Only 5. The bed supporting you. A room protecting you from the weather. A meal you ate today. A person whose voice brings comfort. The fact that you can hear these words. Your hands. Your sight. Your ability to learn. A skill. A pet. A friend. A memory. Running water. Electricity. A cup of tea. The possibilities are ordinary. That is why they are powerful. Abundance is often hidden inside the ordinary because the mind becomes accustomed to what works. You notice the broken appliance immediately. You rarely celebrate the 100 other objects functioning correctly. You notice the unexpected bill. You forget the services you successfully paid for last month. You notice the client who left. You forget the clients who stayed. Gratitude corrects the imbalance of attention. Sigh. Thank you for what is working. Thank you for what is supporting me. Thank you for what I have learned. Thank you for what I can do. Thank you for the money that has already passed through my hands and served my life. Thank you for every meal it purchased, every roof, every journey, every lesson, every moment of comfort, every person I could help. I bless what has already been given, and I remain open to more. Gratitude is not a payment you send to the universe to purchase another blessing. It is a state that teaches the mind. Good exists here too. And a mind capable of seeing existing good becomes more capable of recognizing arriving good. Rest in that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As the night grows quieter, there is another form of guidance worth honoring. Intuition. Not every sudden thought is divine instruction. Not every dream is prophecy. Not every impulse deserves action. Discernment still matters. But there are times when the mind, after resting from deliberate analysis, makes connections you could not consciously force. An answer appears in the morning. A name enters your mind. You suddenly see how 2 ideas connect. You realize who you need to call. You understand what must be changed. You wake with clarity around a problem that seemed impossible the night before. This is one reason rest matters. A mind under constant pressure has very little room for insight. Imagine Fatima. She has been unemployed for 8 months. Application after application. Rejection after rejection. Savings shrinking. Rent approaching. She has revised the resume. Changed the cover letter. Applied across industries. Asked friends. Contacted recruiters. Nothing has led to stable work. One night, exhausted, she listens to a calming meditation about guidance and goes to sleep. She dreams of a glass office building in the city. In the dream, she enters, takes an elevator, 9th floor, walks into an office. A woman with short gray hair looks at her and says, "I have been waiting for you." Fatima wakes. She knows dreams can be random. She has no intention of building her entire financial future around one night's imagery. But the building is real. She recognizes it. And the dream leaves an unusually strong impression. She thinks, investigating costs me nothing but an afternoon. So she goes. That is important. Intuition becomes useful when combined with grounded action. She enters the building, takes the elevator to the 9th floor. Several companies occupy the floor. She feels drawn toward one office, a marketing company. Fatima walks in and politely asks whether they know of any employment openings. The receptionist begins explaining that applications are generally submitted online. Then, a senior woman walks past, short gray hair. The resemblance to the dream startles Fatima. The woman hears part of the conversation and invites Fatima to speak privately. It turns out that someone resigned unexpectedly. A position has just opened. Fatima explains her background. Her experience aligns well enough that they arrange the next steps immediately. She eventually receives the job. Whether you interpret the dream as intuition, coincidence, subconscious pattern recognition, or spiritual guidance is less important than the lesson. Fatima did not wake and say, "The universe owes me a job because of this dream." She investigated. She walked into the building. She introduced herself. She spoke. Guidance met action. That is the balance. So when you wake with a clear idea, do not automatically dismiss it. Write it down. Examine it. Ask whether it is ethical, practical, consistent with your values. Then take an appropriate step. Perhaps tomorrow morning you remember someone you have not contacted in years. Perhaps an idea arrives for a service. Perhaps you suddenly know how to phrase an offer. Perhaps you realize which expense must be removed. Perhaps you know which conversation you have been avoiding. You do not need to call every impulse divine. Simply become more attentive. Sigh. I am receptive to wise guidance. I recognize intuition without abandoning discernment. I notice useful ideas. I remember important insights. I take grounded action when the direction is clear. Divine intelligence can work through my reason, my intuition, my experience, and my relationships. I'm listening. Now there is a particular moment that many people know well. 2 or 3 in the morning. You wake suddenly. The room is dark. Everything is silent. And before your eyes are fully open, the financial mind begins. The bill, the debt, the deadline, the client, the rent, the problem. Night magnifies fear. At 3 in the morning, a small uncertainty can feel like the collapse of civilization. So create a new midnight habit. Not because midnight possesses magical power, because if you wake in fear, you need a simple pattern that prevents fear from taking control. Instead of opening your phone, instead of checking the account, instead of calculating, use one peaceful sentence. My financial life is moving toward greater order. Or, I am guided, I am supported. The next right step will become clear. Or, if you prefer something shorter, money flows through my life in wise and beneficial ways. 3 times. Slowly. Then return to breathing. That is enough. The purpose is not to make the sentence perform magic. The purpose is to interrupt the 3 in the morning catastrophe spiral. Consider Omar. Omar owns a small business. The business is in serious difficulty. Suppliers are waiting. Rent is overdue. Taxes need attention. Cash flow is weak. He wakes around 3 every morning with his heart racing. For months, the same pattern repeats. Wake, panic, calculate, lose sleep, perform poorly the next day. Make worse decisions because he is exhausted. Then repeat. Omar finally changes the night pattern. When he wakes, he refuses to perform accounting in bed. He whispers, "The way to financial order is opening. I am guided toward the money, decisions, and restructuring I need." Then he breathes and returns to sleep. After several nights, an old business contact reaches out regarding a payment connected to previous work. The amount is significant enough to cover several urgent obligations. This does not permanently save the company, but it gives Omar something he desperately needs. Breathing room. And with breathing room, clarity returns. He reviews the business, cuts waste, renegotiates several arrangements, contacts former clients, changes pricing, stops carrying unprofitable services simply because he has always offered them. The unexpected payment did not create the entire rescue. It created enough space for wisdom to re-enter. This is why peace matters financially. Sometimes the first form of supply is not money. It is mental clarity, and clarity prevents expensive mistakes. So if you wake tonight, remember, nothing useful is gained by panicking in the dark. Tomorrow has daylight. Tomorrow has telephone calls. Tomorrow has spreadsheets. Tomorrow has conversations. Tonight has rest. Sigh. I release the need to solve tomorrow at 3 in the morning. I trust myself to face the numbers in daylight. I am guided. I am capable. I can rest. My mind is allowed to sleep. My body is allowed to recover. And from recovery comes better action. Let yourself drift. Now we come to a teaching that can be difficult for anyone who has been waiting a long time. Timing. When you have prayed, affirmed, worked, learned, changed habits, and still the desired result has not fully arrived, waiting can feel insulting. You think, how much more preparation can there possibly be? How much longer? What am I doing wrong? But not every delay is evidence of failure, and not every delay should be spiritualized. Sometimes a strategy genuinely needs changing. Sometimes an application needs improving. Sometimes a market is difficult. Sometimes we need help. Sometimes the answer is practical. But there are also moments when the work occurring during the delay is inside us. Imagine Miriam. For 3 years, she has practiced nearly every abundance technique she can find. Affirmations, visualization, gratitude, journaling. Yet financially, very little appears to change. She remains in a job she dislikes. Bills remain difficult. She feels trapped. After 3 years, her spiritual practice has become angry. Every affirmation is secretly a demand. I am abundant. So where is it? Everything works for me. Then why has this not worked? She is no longer using the practices to create peace. She is using them to check whether reality has obeyed. One evening, at a talk on prosperity consciousness, Miriam finally asks, "When does this work? I have done everything. Where is my result?" The answer she receives is uncomfortable. Perhaps the question is not only, "When will the money come?" Perhaps another question is, "Who am I becoming while I wait?" Miriam goes home angry, but the question follows her, "Who am I becoming?" Then she sees the contradiction. She says she wants abundance, but she has secretly made money the judge of her value. If the balance rises, she feels worthy. If it falls, she feels like a failure. If a manifestation appears, she feels spiritual. If nothing happens, she feels rejected. Money has become the scoreboard of her identity. No amount will create permanent peace under those conditions, because every amount can change. Miriam begins another practice. For several months, she stops constantly checking whether abundance has arrived. She still works, still budgets, still looks for opportunities, but she practices a deeper sentence. My value does not rise and fall with my bank balance. I am valuable before the next opportunity. I am whole before the raise. I am worthy before the business grows. Money can improve my circumstances. It does not create my identity. This feels strange. She has used financial success as evidence of personal worth for years, but gradually, life becomes easier. She enjoys simple things again. She stops comparing. She becomes kinder to herself. Her present job still is not her dream, but she no longer walks into it every morning carrying hatred. That change affects her work. People notice. Several months later, a colleague recommends Miriam for a role at another organization. She did not apply initially. The company contacts her. The compensation is nearly double. The role is more interesting. She accepts. Her financial life changes dramatically over the following months, but something more important has happened. Miriam knows she would still have value if the job disappeared tomorrow. That is freedom. Prosperity is easier to hold when you are not demanding that it prove you deserve to exist. So if you are waiting, ask carefully, is there something useful to learn here? Not as punishment. Not because you must earn blessings through suffering, but because waiting can reveal things urgency hides. Do you need stronger boundaries, better financial skills, more patience, a clearer offer, a healthier relationship with receiving, less comparison, a willingness to ask, a willingness to stop, a willingness to admit that one path is not working? Use the wait. Do not worship it. Do not romanticize it. Use it. Prepare. Learn. Adjust. Become capable of holding what you say you want. Sigh. I trust right timing without becoming passive. I prepare while I wait. I act when action is required. I rest when rest is required. I do not measure my worth by speed. I do not measure divine love by deadlines. I remain available to progress. I remain available to redirection. My good does not need to arrive according to my panic. Now enter the silence. No demand. No visualization for a moment. No financial target. No amount. No deadline. Simply awareness. Bring your attention gently to the area around your heart. Imagine a small, steady light. Warm, quiet, nothing dramatic. The light represents the part of you that is unchanged by the numbers. The account rises. The light remains. The account falls. The light remains. Praise arrives. The light remains. Criticism arrives. The light remains. A business succeeds. The light remains. A business fails. The light remains. This is the deeper identity, the part of you beneath achievement, beneath comparison, beneath financial history. Rest there. You do not need to become worthy tonight. You do not need to manufacture worthiness. You simply stop arguing against your own inherent dignity. Nothing to prove. Nothing to perform. Breathe. There is a man we may call Joseph. Joseph is a pianist. He plays in hotel lounges and restaurants. He is talented, but he is frustrated. He dreams of concert halls, original compositions, recognition. He has auditioned repeatedly, networked constantly, sent recordings, asked for introductions, and rejection follows rejection. Eventually, music itself becomes painful. Every performance is now a test. Did anyone important notice? Will this person help me? Could this lead somewhere? A gift that once brought joy becomes a constant audition for worth. One evening, after an especially discouraging day, Joseph walks into a quiet church. He is not there because he has suddenly become conventionally religious. He simply needs silence. He sits, and after a while he admits, I am tired of trying to make everyone approve of me. I am tired of proving that my music matters. I do not know what else to do. In the silence, one simple realization comes. Play because you love to play. Not because someone may validate you. Not because someone may hire you. Not because someone important may enter the room. Remember the gift before the ambition. Joseph recognizes how far he has moved from the original love of music. He used to play because sound opened something inside him. Now he plays like a salesman, kind for approval. So for 1 month, he steps away from chasing. He continues earning what he needs. But during his personal practice, he plays only music he loves. He improvises, writes, experiments. No career strategy, no imagined critics, no scoreboard. Slowly, joy returns, then peace, then something else. His playing changes. It becomes less anxious, more present, more honest. One evening, a friend who owns a small cafe asks Joseph to play. Joseph agrees. There is no expectation, no important audition, no career pressure. He simply plays. A woman listening is deeply moved. Afterward, she introduces herself. She works with an arts foundation that supports emerging musicians. She asks about Joseph's original compositions. One conversation leads to another. Eventually, the foundation offers support for him to record his music. The funding includes enough assistance for him to focus on the project without constant financial pressure. The recording creates opportunities Joseph had pursued unsuccessfully for years. Performances, interviews, teaching invitations. But notice what opened the door. Joseph returned to service, to presence, to love. He stopped asking his gift, "How will you prove my worth?" and began asking, "How can I express what is true through you?" There is prosperity in this shift. When every action is trying to prove your worth, people can feel the desperation. When you act from fullness, the quality changes. This does not mean you never market yourself, never audition, never negotiate, never ask. It means those actions are no longer desperate pleas for permission to exist. They become clean expressions of value. Sigh. I do not perform my worth. I express my gifts. I do not chase approval. I offer value. I do not need every person to understand me. The right people can recognize what I bring. I work from love. I act from clarity. I receive right compensation without apology. I am enough before the outcome. I am whole before the applause. I am present now, and from presence, right action becomes clear. Let the affirmations become softer now, almost whispers. I am enough. I am whole. I am guided. I am supplied. I am peaceful. I am open. I am not my past. I am not my bank account. I am not my mistakes. I am not the opportunity that rejected me. I am not the door that closed. I am larger than one circumstance. I am connected to possibility. I am available to good. I rest in divine order. I trust right timing. I allow right flow. I receive right supply. And now notice the difference between wanting and receiving. Wanting often reaches, grasps, strains. It says, where is it? When is it coming? Why do they have it? Why do I not? Receiving feels different. Hands open, breathing slower, attention present. Receiving says, I am ready to recognize good when it arrives. Imagine first that you are reaching desperately for something just beyond your hands. Feel the shoulders, the tension, the effort. Now, release the image. Sit calmly, hands open. Imagine a gift being placed into them. Notice the change. That is the inner posture we cultivate, not entitlement. Readiness, not passivity. Receptivity. Sigh. I am open to receive. I am ready to receive. I am willing to receive. I welcome honest prosperity. I welcome useful opportunities. I welcome wise partnerships. I welcome fair compensation. I welcome greater financial peace. I welcome good without chasing it in fear. My hands are open. My mind is open. My life is open. And I remain wise about what I accept. Now breathe slowly. In, out, in, out. There is nothing else you need to force in this moment. The seed has been planted. The soil has been prepared. And your task tonight is simply to rest. There comes a moment when you must stop digging up the seed to see whether it has begun to grow. You have spoken. You have prayed. You have examined old beliefs. You have looked honestly at fear, resentment, unworthiness, struggle, and the habit of expecting loss. You have begun replacing those patterns with another consciousness. Now another spiritual discipline becomes necessary. Gratitude before visible completion. Not gratitude used as a bargain. Not, I will say thank you so that the universe will give me what I want. That is simply another form of grasping. True gratitude says, I recognize the good already present. I appreciate the progress already occurring, and I am willing to move forward without demanding constant proof. This is what it means to seal your good. You stop speaking one way in prayer and another way 5 minutes later. You stop affirming supply at night and announcing catastrophe at breakfast. You stop saying, I trust, then spending the entire following day asking, but where is it? Faith needs consistency, not perfection. Consistency. If you plant a seed tonight, you do not return tomorrow morning and accuse the soil of failure because there is no tree. You water. You protect the soil. You allow the hidden process. Financial transformation often works in a similar way. A new habit begins before the account reflects it. A new skill develops before someone pays you for it. A new relationship is formed before it becomes an opportunity. A debt reduction plan begins before freedom is visible. A business is reorganized before profit improves. A healthier financial identity forms before anyone else notices. So give thanks, not only for finished outcomes. Give thanks for movement. Sigh. Thank you for the clarity I have today that I did not have before. Thank you for the courage to look at my finances honestly. Thank you for every old belief I have recognized. Thank you for every better decision I am learning to make. Thank you for every dollar already serving my life. Thank you for every legitimate opportunity already moving toward me. Thank you for the wisdom that helps me recognize what belongs to me. Thank you for the discipline to build what I want to keep. Thank you for the peace that is returning. Gratitude stabilizes consciousness. It reminds you that your entire life is not suspended until one financial number changes. And strangely, when you stop postponing gratitude until the future, you become much more capable of building that future. Consider an illustrative story about a farmer named David. David has known 3 difficult seasons. One year drought damaged the crop. Another year pests came. Another year poor weather reduced the harvest again. Debt accumulates. Equipment needs repair. His land has belonged to his family for generations, but now he is considering whether he can keep it. Friends tell him, sell, leave, find different work. Perhaps they are being practical, and David knows that practical decisions may eventually be necessary. But before surrendering the land, he wants to know whether he has exhausted the possibilities. He walks through his fields one evening. The earth is dry. Nothing around him looks prosperous. Yet David realizes that he has spent months speaking only to the evidence of failure. Bad season, bad weather, bad luck, debt, loss, fear. He has become so familiar with what is wrong that he has stopped imagining what a successful season would actually require. So he changes his prayer. He does not say, God, make money appear while I do nothing. He says, thank you for this land. Thank you for everything it has already given my family. Thank you for the knowledge I have gained from difficult seasons. Guide me toward the right seed, the right timing, the right help, the right financial arrangement, the right decisions. And if there is still a harvest here for me, show me how to prepare for it. For several mornings, David walks the field with this prayer. He begins thinking differently, not magically, practically. He examines what seed varieties might perform better. He talks with people. He investigates financing. He studies the mistakes of previous seasons rather than treating every loss as meaningless punishment. Then an old friend visits. He knows David's situation. Instead of offering a conventional high-interest loan, the friend proposes investing in the next crop in exchange for an agreed share of the eventual harvest. David examines the arrangement carefully. It is reasonable. He accepts. Now seed can be purchased. The season that follows happens to bring favorable rainfall. The crop grows well. David remains diligent. He monitors the fields, protects the crop, uses what he learned from previous failures. And when harvest comes, the yield is exceptionally strong. Market conditions also favor him. The income allows David to repay debts, repair equipment, and create a reserve so that one difficult season will not threaten everything again. What began the recovery? Was it gratitude alone? No. It was gratitude joined with restored imagination, wise planning, human help, favorable conditions, and action. But gratitude was the moment David stopped standing in the field emotionally defeated. He stopped treating the past 3 years as a prophecy about every year to come. That is the principle. Do not bless the harvest instead of planting. Bless the harvest and plant. Do not affirm prosperity instead of learning. Affirm prosperity and learn. Do not give thanks instead of taking responsibility. Give thanks while taking responsibility. Spirit and action do not oppose one another. They complete one another. Sigh. I give thanks for the good already present. I give thanks for the good developing through my right action. I give thanks for wise solutions. I give thanks for useful opportunities. I give thanks for the strength to correct what needs correcting. I give thanks for the resources I know about. I give thanks for resources I have not yet discovered. I give thanks for financial freedom as a direction I am actively building toward. I do not need to see the entire harvest today. I bless the seed. I bless the soil. I bless the work. I bless the timing. And I continue. Now there is another principle that becomes especially important when circumstances look difficult. Non-resistance. This is easily misunderstood. Non-resistance is not refusing to act. It is not allowing people to exploit you. It is not ignoring debt. It is not smiling while a serious problem grows. Non-resistance means you stop using emotional warfare against reality. A bill exists. You do not need to hate it. A client left. You do not need to turn that event into a declaration that your career is finished. A mistake happened. You do not need to spend 5 years fighting yourself because of it. A door closed. You do not need to stand outside the closed door punching it until your hands bleed. You can look, accept, learn, then move. Water teaches this beautifully. Water does not argue with the stone. It moves around it, over it, under it. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it finds another channel. Soft does not mean powerless. A river can shape stone precisely because it keeps moving. Financial non-resistance says, this is what exists now. What is the wisest movement from here? Not, this should never have happened. That sentence may be emotionally understandable, but after the lesson has been learned, repeating it cannot change the past. Ask instead, now what? That small question returns power. Imagine Elena. Elena is a graphic designer. For several years, one large corporate client has provided approximately 80% of her income. This makes life comfortable. It also creates vulnerability. One morning, the company announces budget cuts. Elena's contract ends almost immediately. 80%. Gone. Her first response is panic. Understandably, she emails nearly everyone she knows. She lowers her prices before anyone negotiates. She accepts meetings with clients she does not want. She sends desperate proposals. She stays awake until 2 in the morning refreshing her inbox, and nothing useful happens. The silence feels terrifying. Then, Elena realizes something. She has made the loss larger by treating it as proof that she is in danger every second of the day. So she stops. Not permanently. She gives herself several days to regain clarity. She walks, sleeps, updates her portfolio carefully instead of frantically. She begins painting again because she has not touched personal creative work in years. And she adopts one sentence. My supply was never one client. That client was one channel. A useful channel, a valuable channel. But one channel, something in Elena relaxes. She reviews her work with different eyes. The pieces she likes most are not even from the client she just lost. They are more experimental projects she had created months earlier. She puts some of that work prominently in her portfolio. 2 weeks later, a company she has admired for years contacts her. Someone on their creative team found her work online. They need a major rebranding project. Elena meets them. This time, she is not entering the conversation thinking, please rescue me. She is thinking, let us see whether we are a good fit. That distinction changes negotiation. She does not immediately discount her rate. She asks questions, understands the scope, calculates the real value of the work, quotes a fee significantly higher than she would have quoted during the panic phase. The company agrees. The project is larger than the work she lost. It also leads to additional referrals. Months later, Elena realizes something surprising. If she had responded to the original loss by filling every empty hour with low-paying work, she might never have had the capacity to accept the better project when it appeared. The empty space frightened her, but the empty space also made room. This is non-resistance. You do not call every ending good. You do not deny grief. You do not pretend financial loss is pleasant, but you refuse to conclude. Because this ended, nothing better can begin. Sigh. I release the fight with what has already happened. I keep the wisdom. I take the action that belongs to me. I refuse to waste energy arguing with yesterday. If one channel closes, I remain open to another. If one plan fails, I remain available to a wiser plan. If one door closes, I do not make the doorway my permanent home. I move. I listen. I adjust. I remain in flow. That is non-resistance. Poise in movement, not passivity. Power without panic. There is another form of resistance that appears particularly intelligent. Logic used as a cage. Logic is a gift. Reason is a gift. Financial decisions benefit enormously from evidence, calculation, research, probability, planning, and critical thinking. But logic becomes limitation when it pretends the information currently visible is all the information that exists. You cannot calculate a person you have not met. You cannot put tomorrow's unexpected introduction into today's spreadsheet. You cannot model every change in an industry. You cannot predict every new technology. You cannot know every decision another human being will make next month. Wise logic understands its limits. Fearful logic says, I cannot see the way, therefore there is no way. Those are not the same statement. Imagine Julian. Julian is an engineer, precise, analytical. He likes measurable facts. After a merger, his position disappears. He approaches job hunting as an engineering problem. Perfect resume, target companies, application tracking, probabilities, salary ranges, interview statistics. For 6 months, he applies. Nothing. He analyzes the result. Perhaps he is too senior, perhaps too specialized. Perhaps his experience is outdated. Perhaps the market has no place for him. Notice what begins happening. Analysis is no longer serving him. It is now constructing an airtight explanation for why success is impossible. Julian's wife notices. One evening, she says, for 3 nights, stop calculating the path. Imagine only the experience of useful work. Julian thinks the idea is absurd, but he is also exhausted by his own analysis. So he tries. He imagines waking with purpose, getting dressed for work, driving somewhere with the quiet satisfaction of being useful. He imagines working with intelligent people, solving real problems, receiving fair compensation. He deliberately does not picture one specific company. He simply lets his mind experience the possibility. There is still work that fits me. 3 days later, a former colleague calls. They have not spoken in several years. The colleague has joined a new firm. The company is looking for someone with a narrow technical specialization. Exactly the specialization Julian believed had become obsolete. Would he be willing to talk? Of course. Conversation leads to opportunity. Opportunity leads to a position. Better salary, shorter commute, more interesting work. Julian's spreadsheet did not contain this route because the old colleague was not a variable he knew to include. That is the lesson. Planning is good, but never worship the plan. Use logic. Then, leave room for life. Sigh. I use reason wisely. I use evidence wisely. I make practical decisions. And I remember that my present information is incomplete. I do not confuse unknown with impossible. I do not confuse unexpected with unrealistic. I remain open to people, information, and opportunities outside my present calculations. My logical mind is my servant. It is not the jailer of my future. Divine intelligence can guide me through reason and beyond the limits of my current data. Now another question. How large is your receiving capacity? Imagine a vasto ocean, endless waters stretching toward the horizon. You arrive carrying a teaspoon. You dip it into the ocean. The ocean does not object. You return with a cup. Still no problem. A bucket. The ocean remains abundant. The limitation is not the ocean. It is the container. Now apply the image carefully. Perhaps life contains much more opportunity than you presently feel safe receiving. More responsibility, more clients, more recognition, more money, more influence, more time, more freedom. The question is not only, can it arrive? The question is, can I hold it without sabotaging myself? That is why we have spoken about worthiness, safety, stewardship, boundaries, and identity. Receiving more requires capacity. Suppose your income doubles. Can you manage taxes? Can you avoid automatically doubling expenses? Can you create systems? Can you protect your time? Can you tolerate people seeing your success? Can you say no when everyone assumes your increased prosperity belongs to them? Can you remain generous without becoming financially porous? Can you accept a compliment without shrinking? Can you be visible without apologizing? This is expanding the container. Imagine Clara. Clara grew up hearing one sentence repeatedly. Money changes people. Usually, it was said negatively. Whenever a wealthy person was mentioned, someone added, "They probably think they are better than everyone." Clara absorbed the association. Wealth equals loss of character. As an adult, Clara works hard and performs well. Yet whenever she gets close to a major advancement, something strange happens. She delays an important project, creates conflict, becomes ill from stress, forgets details she normally remembers, declines opportunities because she suddenly feels overwhelmed. Eventually, Clara recognizes the hidden fear. I am not afraid that success will fail. I am afraid success will work. Because then, who will I become? That is profound. Some people fear failure. Others fear the identity consequences of success. Clara begins using another definition. Wealth does not decide my character. I do. Money can amplify generosity if generosity is already present. Money can amplify selfishness if selfishness is present. The choice remains mine. She begins practicing safety gradually. First, she builds a small reserve. When the account grows, she refuses to manufacture a reason to spend it. She simply lets the money exist. At first, this creates anxiety. She keeps imagining something will happen. But week after week, the reserve remains. Her nervous system learns. Money can stay. Next, she allows herself to purchase something beautiful and useful without guilt. Not to prove wealth, simply to demonstrate that enjoyment does not equal irresponsibility. Then, a promotion appears. Previously, she would have found a reason to refuse. This time, she evaluates it objectively. The work fits. The compensation is fair. The challenge is healthy. She accepts. Step by step, Clara expands her container. Prosperity does not make her arrogant. She remains kind, generous, grounded. In fact, greater stability allows her to become calmer and more available to the people she loves. The wealth did not erase her character. It gave her character more room. So tonight, expand your container gently. Do not jump immediately to fantasies of impossible numbers if that creates more resistance. Begin one level above what currently feels normal. Could you feel safe with 1 month's expenses saved? 3 months? 6? Could you feel safe earning 20% more? Could you feel safe charging a fairer rate? Could you feel safe having one more client? Could you feel safe asking for the promotion? Could you feel safe investing in a useful skill? Let your mind practice holding good. Sigh, I am expanding my capacity. I can receive more without losing myself. I can manage more without becoming overwhelmed. I can hold money calmly. I can build reserves peacefully. I can prosper and remain grounded. I can succeed and remain kind. I can receive and remain generous. I am safe with more. Let that sentence ripple gently. Safe with more. Safe with more. Safe with more. Now let several words fall quietly into the mind. Ease. Not laziness. Ease. The absence of unnecessary friction. Flow. Not carelessness. Flow. Movement without panic. Plenty. Not waste. Plenty. Enough to meet needs and create healthy surplus. Trust. Not blindness. Trust. The willingness to act without requiring absolute certainty. Now. Not someday when everything is perfect. Now. The next step belongs to now. Let the words settle. Ease. Flow. Plenty. Trust. Now. You do not need to force an emotional experience. Simply allow the ideas to become familiar. And remember this: you are not beginning from zero. Every useful lesson you have learned remains. Every skill, every professional relationship, every mistake whose lesson you now understand, every act of discipline, every period of perseverance, every moment of courage. These things accumulate too. Financial accounts are not the only accounts that compound. Skill compounds. Reputation compounds. Trust compounds. Experience compounds. Knowledge compounds. Good decisions compound. Your future can benefit from all of them. So when the mind says, I am starting over, answer, I may be beginning again, but I am not beginning empty-handed. That is a more accurate statement. Now we come to the principle of making space, the law of the vacuum. The language may sound mystical, but much of its practical wisdom is immediately understandable. New things require room. A schedule packed with meaningless commitments has no room for new work. A mind filled with resentment has little room for creativity. A home overwhelmed by clutter can create constant cognitive friction. A business filled with unprofitable products has little capacity for better ones. A life filled with relationships that continually drain energy leaves less energy for healthy connection. Sometimes abundance requires addition. Sometimes it requires subtraction. Imagine Henry. Henry has worked construction for 15 years. Reliable worker, skilled, strong, but financially, very little changes. He earns, pay, survives, repeats. At home, the physical environment mirrors this stagnation. Old tools he no longer uses, broken furniture, boxes that have not been opened in years, clothes he has not worn for a decade, objects kept because, maybe someday, the apartment feels compressed. So does Henry. One weekend he decides to clear it. Not because throwing out a broken chair magically creates money, because he wants an outer act that represents an inner decision. I am no longer building my life around what is finished. For 2 days he sorts, keep, repair, donate, recycle, discard. He gives usable tools to younger workers, donates clothes, throws away items that cannot realistically be repaired, cleans the apartment deeply. By Sunday evening, the space feels different. Light, air, room. And Henry notices that his mind feels different too. Then he goes further. He opens a notebook and writes the internal clutter. A former boss who passed him over for promotion. His brother who borrowed money and never repaid it. A failed attempt at self-employment. The belief that he is too old to learn management skills. The fear of looking foolish if he tries again. These are the boxes in the mental garage. Henry cannot donate them to charity. He must release them consciously. He writes what each experience taught him. Then he writes, I am finished carrying this. He does not need to forget. He chooses not to build his future around it. A week later, a contractor Henry worked with years ago calls. A new commercial project is beginning. They need a foreman. Would Henry consider it? The position pays significantly more. More importantly, it requires leadership. The old Henry might have said, I am just a worker. The man who has spent a week clearing the old identity says, tell me about the role. He accepts, performs well. Several months later, the contractor discusses a possible partnership arrangement. Henry's life begins moving in a direction that had been impossible to imagine while he kept mentally repeating, this is simply my level. Was the job caused by cleaning his apartment? We do not need that claim. The meaningful connection is that Henry created movement. He discarded objects, released old resentments, changed self-definition, became more receptive to advancement. Then when an opportunity appeared, he was ready to say yes. So tomorrow, perhaps create a little space. Not because clutter is a moral failure, because space can support clarity. One drawer, one desk, one folder on your computer, one subscription you never use, one financial account you no longer need, one unnecessary recurring expense, one commitment that drains more than it gives, one old resentment, one outdated belief. Ask, what am I keeping simply because it is familiar? Then release what is genuinely complete. Sigh, I make room for better. I release what no longer serves. I release expired identities. I release habits that belong to an earlier version of me. I release financial clutter. I release emotional clutter. I release unnecessary obligations. I make room for clarity. I make room for opportunity. I make room for peace. I make room for prosperity. Now imagine your financial life as a garden. Some areas are healthy, some have become overgrown. Walk slowly through the garden. You see one weed labeled fear of poverty. You do not curse the weed. You pull it. Another says, I am bad with money. Pull it. Another, I always ruin opportunities. Pull it. Another, if I become successful, people will reject me. Pull it. Another, my past proves my future. Pull it. Another, there is never enough. Pull it. Beneath those weeds, the soil is still fertile. That matters. The potential was not destroyed. It was simply crowded. Now you plant new seeds. Discernment, skill, saving, receiving, right compensation, generosity, patience, courage, clarity, prosperity. As each seed goes into the soil, say, I plant wisdom. I cultivate wisdom. I plant financial peace. I cultivate financial peace. I plant discipline. I cultivate discipline. I plant opportunity through useful service. I cultivate opportunity through useful service. I plant abundance consciousness. I cultivate abundance consciousness. Then imagine rain. Gentle, not overwhelming. Enough. You do not pull the seeds back out. You trust the process. There is another way the vacuum sometimes appears. Loss creates it for us, and that is far more difficult. Consider Sophia. For 12 years, she works for the same company. She earns a stable salary, moves gradually upward. Her financial life is predictable. Externally, she appears secure. Internally, she is deeply dissatisfied. Sophia dreams of starting a design business. For years, she tells herself, someday, when I save more, when the market is safer, when I feel ready, when I know exactly what will happen. Someday never arrives. Then, on an ordinary Friday afternoon, she is called into a meeting. Restructuring. Position eliminated. Severance package. 2 weeks to finish. Sophia walks out in shock. She did not create the vacuum. Life created it. That night she cries, this matters. Spirituality should not demand that a person smile 5 minutes after losing security. Grief is not failure. Fear is not proof that you lack faith. Sophia feels what she feels. Then, after several days, she asks, what does this situation make possible that I was too afraid to make possible myself? That question is different. She reviews the severance, her savings, expenses. If she lives carefully, she has approximately 6 months. 6 months, not forever, but enough for an experiment. Sophia decides, I will give the business 6 honest months. She registers it, builds a simple website, contacts her professional network, creates an offer. The first month is frightening. Almost no work. The mind screams, see, you should have found another corporate job immediately. Sophia continues. Second month, a small design project, $500. She completes it beautifully. The client recommends her. 3 new conversations follow. By month 3, work is increasing. By month 6, Sophia is earning more than her old salary. Not every business story ends this way. That is important to remember. But this story illustrates something useful. Sophia used the empty space rather than allowing the empty space to use her. Within a year, she hires 2 assistants. The business brings not only income but creative satisfaction she had not felt for years. Later, she looks back at the day she was laid off. She no longer calls it the best thing that could happen simply because losing a job is inherently good. She calls it the event that forced a decision she had postponed. The loss created room. She decided what to build in it. That is the deeper lesson. When something ends, do not rush immediately to declare, this is a blessing. Sometimes you do not know yet. Simply say, this has ended. I will grieve honestly. I will examine what remains, and I will remain open to what can begin. That is enough. If you are facing an ending now, say, I do not know the full meaning of this yet. I refuse to condemn my future because of one loss. I remain teachable. I remain creative. I remain guided. I will use what remains. I will learn what is necessary. I will watch for the next right opening. The empty space is not proof that nothing is coming. It is simply space, and I will decide carefully what belongs there next. Now we move to surrender, not surrender as defeat. Surrender as the point where you stop believing your panic is the only thing keeping life together. Imagine Beatrice, a young widow during the Great Depression. 2 children, no meaningful savings. Factories in her town have closed. Neighbors are struggling too. Employment is scarce. Rent is overdue. Food is limited. One cold evening, Beatrice sits near a window watching snow fall. For months, her mind has tried to solve the problem every waking minute. Where will money come from? What if we lose the room? What will the children eat? What if no work appears? She is exhausted. Eventually something breaks. Not hope, control. She whispers, God, I do not know how to solve every part of this. I will do what I can, but I cannot carry tomorrow, next week, next month, and every possible disaster at the same time. Show me the next step. Help me see what I cannot see. Then, for the first time in months, Beatrice sleeps. The next morning, her landlord comes. She expects another demand for rent. Instead, he tells her he is willing to give her additional time and reduce the immediate pressure while she searches for work. Perhaps compassion has moved him. Perhaps he has reflected on her circumstances. Whatever the cause, Beatrice suddenly has breathing room. Several days later, a woman from her church who owns a bakery tells her she needs early morning help. The pay is modest. Beatrice accepts immediately. She works well. Customers like her. One of those customers manages a hotel in a nearby town. Over time, he notices Beatrice's warmth, discipline, and knowledge of food. When a kitchen management role becomes available, he offers her an interview. She receives the position. Higher pay, greater stability. Months later, she can rent a more comfortable home. Years later, she eventually opens a small restaurant built around recipes from her family. But the turning point in Beatrice's story was not the restaurant. It was the night she stopped trying to solve the entire future at once. Surrender gave her enough peace to accept the next step. Bakery, then hotel, then savings, then restaurant. There was no need to see the restaurant while sitting beside the snowy window. She needed only the next opening. So say, I surrender the demand to know the whole path. I surrender the belief that panic protects me. I surrender the need to control every outcome. I remain responsible. I remain alert. I remain willing to work. But I release the impossible burden of knowing everything now. Show me the next step. That is enough. And now, we arrive at the final layer of this night. Not a promise that every financial problem disappears by morning. Not a claim that thought alone controls every economic event. Something more useful. A new relationship with possibility. Imagine 2 paths. The first is familiar. You know every stone. Fear, scarcity, resentment, avoidance, overwork, financial shame, compulsive checking, impulsive spending, refusing to receive. Believing one lost opportunity means all opportunities are gone. Believing age has closed the door. Believing your past has already voted on your future. You have walked this path enough. Now look at another. It does not require perfection. It requires practice, responsibility without panic, faith without denial, generosity without self-destruction, saving without fear, spending without unconscious escape, receiving without guilt, working without worshiping exhaustion, resting without shame, thinking clearly, speaking carefully, forgiving the past, making room, recognizing value, taking right action. That is the new path. You do not need a metaphysical explanation for the path to be powerful. You simply choose it. One decision, then another, then another. Feel your feet standing at the intersection. The old road whispers, "Come back. You know me. I am familiar." The new road says, You will need to learn. And you answer, I am willing. Take one step. I am learning to manage money peacefully. Another, I am learning to receive. Another, I am learning to keep. Another, I am learning to create value. Another, I am learning to recognize opportunity. Another, I am learning to forgive mistakes without repeating them. Another, I am learning to rest. Another, I am learning to ask. Another, I am learning to say no. Another, I am learning to become financially strong. You are on the new road now. Not because an invisible field has guaranteed a particular outcome, because you have chosen a different way of meeting your life, and choices compound. Now let the final affirmations come gently. Do not struggle to believe every sentence. Take what your spirit can receive. Let the rest simply pass. I stand in the river of abundance with open hands. I am available to honest prosperity. I welcome useful opportunities. I recognize right opportunities when they appear. I am guided toward work that creates value. I am guided toward people with whom value can be exchanged fairly. I am willing to be compensated well for excellent service. I am learning to hold money peacefully. I am learning to build surplus. I am learning to invest wisely. I am learning to give joyfully. I am learning to enjoy money without worshiping money. Money is a tool. I use it with intelligence. Money can support my family. Money can support my health. Money can support education. Money can support creativity. Money can support generosity. Money can support freedom. I bless every honest dollar that enters my life. I bless every wise dollar that leaves my life. I bless every dollar that stays and grows for my future. I bless every dollar directed toward freedom from debt. I bless every dollar invested in useful growth. I am not afraid of money. I do not chase money in desperation. I create value. I recognize value. I exchange value. I receive value. My financial world becomes more orderly. My financial decisions become clearer. My habits become stronger. My consciousness becomes calmer. I am not condemned by my past. I am not limited by one failure. I am not defined by one balance. I am not defined by one job. I am not defined by one client. I am not defined by one mistake. I am still capable of movement. I am still capable of learning. I am still capable of receiving. I am still capable of beginning again. Now, there is one final illustrative story. A man named Samuel is 72, retired, living on a small pension. For years, he has assumed his financial story is finished. He tells himself, my earning years are behind me. Whatever I have now is all I will ever have. Abundance belongs to younger people. New opportunities belong to younger people. My job is simply to make what remains last. Then an unexpected medical bill arrives. Samuel lies awake one night, worried about how he will pay it. While listening to a late-night radio program, he hears a discussion about Florence Scovel Shinn and the idea that age does not determine the availability of supply. The thought stays with him. What if my future is not finished merely because my career ended? Samuel does not suddenly launch a company. He simply stops using age as a final sentence. He writes a note. At 72, I remain open to supply. I am guided toward the resources already available to me. I give thanks for the good I can still receive and the good I can still give. Each evening, he reads it. Several weeks later, Samuel receives communication from an attorney. A distant cousin has died. Samuel is named in a modest inheritance, approximately $23,000, enough to handle the medical expense, repair an aging car, and create financial breathing room. Samuel had no way to predict this, but the inheritance also reminds him to examine his entire financial life more carefully. And that review leads him to something he had almost forgotten. Years earlier, his parents left him a small piece of rural land. Samuel has done almost nothing with it. He assumed it had little value. Several months later, a developer interested in a community project contacts landowners in the area. The parcel now has use. Samuel eventually agrees to sell it for approximately $30,000. At 72, he has more savings than at any other time in his life. Again, the lesson is not, "A firm and an inheritance will appear." The lesson is, never declare your life finished while you are still living it. There may be assets you forgot, knowledge you can share, skills you can teach, relationships you can renew, benefits you did not know you qualified for, property you undervalued, creative work you can still produce, wisdom younger people may pay to learn, opportunities appropriate to your season of life. Age changes the form of possibility. It does not erase possibility. Samuel spends his remaining years with far greater peace. He travels modestly, helps grandchildren with education, supports causes he values. Most importantly, he stops treating each year as a reduction. He begins experiencing it as another form of life. So if some part of you has been whispering, "Too late," answer it now. Too late according to what? You are here. Therefore, there is still a next decision. You are breathing. Therefore, there is still a next conversation. You can think. Therefore, there is still something you can learn. You can choose. Therefore, the story remains open. Sigh. It is not too late for wise change. It is not too late to learn. It is not too late to repair. It is not too late to save. It is not too late to build. It is not too late to receive. It is not too late to become more peaceful. It is not too late to create a different relationship with money. I release the calendar as a weapon against myself. My past is information. It is not a prison. My age is information. It is not a verdict. My present circumstances are information. They are not prophecy. The future remains open to right action. And now the night is quiet. There is nothing more you need to solve. Let the shoulders soften. Let the face relax. Let the hands remain open. The mind may continue listening, or it may drift away. Either is fine. You do not need to force the words into yourself. Rest is enough. Let these final declarations become slow, simple, steady. I am supported. I am guided. I am learning. I am capable. I am open. I am peaceful. I am abundantly supplied with ideas. I am abundantly supplied with courage. I am abundantly supplied with wisdom. I am abundantly supplied with opportunities to create value. I recognize the channels of good already present. I remain open to new channels. My words become wiser. My habits become stronger. My actions become clearer. My financial life moves toward order. My relationship with receiving becomes peaceful. My relationship with saving becomes peaceful. My relationship with giving becomes peaceful. My relationship with money becomes peaceful. I release resentment. I release shame. I release unnecessary fear. I release compulsive struggle. I release the belief that I must suffer to deserve good. I release the belief that money must always disappear. I release the belief that my best opportunities are behind me. I release the belief that one closed door means there is no way forward. I welcome divine order. I welcome clarity. I welcome right opportunity. I welcome fair compensation. I welcome wise stewardship. I welcome healthy abundance. I welcome peace. The river moves through my life. I do not need to dam it. I do not need to chase it. I participate in it. I receive. I direct. I save. I invest. I give. I grow. I rest. And I begin again tomorrow. When morning comes, do not immediately search for proof that something miraculous happened overnight. That would return you to grasping. Instead, notice yourself. Is the mind quieter? Is one decision clearer? Is there one call to make? One expense to review? One application to send? One conversation to begin? One habit to change? One opportunity to investigate? One old resentment you no longer wish to carry? Take that step. Spiritual teaching becomes powerful when it enters Monday morning. When it enters the invoice, the budget, the negotiation, the bank account, the difficult conversation, the price you charge, the job application, the savings transfer, the decision not to buy from anxiety, the decision to accept help, the decision to forgive, the decision to try again. That is where the new consciousness becomes a new life. So tomorrow, walk differently, not arrogantly, peacefully. Remember, you do not need the whole road. You need the next right step. You do not need to control every channel. You need to remain open to supply. You do not need to pretend difficulty does not exist. You need to stop giving difficulty the final word. You do not need to become someone worthy of abundance. You need to stop making agreements with your own unworthiness. You do not need to punish the past. Learn from it, bless what it taught, release it, and move. Now say one final declaration. I speak the word of faith, and divine order now opens my way. Again, I speak the word of faith, and divine order now opens my way. Let that be enough. If this message has become part of your own intention tonight, you may write that declaration in the comments. I speak the word of faith, and divine order now opens my way. Not as superstition, not as a bargain, as a decision. A decision about the language you will carry forward. A decision about the consciousness you will practice. A decision about the life you are now willing to build. And now rest. You are not required to know how everything will unfold. You are not required to solve every financial question tonight. The body can sleep. The mind can soften. Tomorrow you will have another opportunity to choose wisely. Another opportunity to create. Another opportunity to receive. Another opportunity to act. Another opportunity to bless what moves through your hands. The old story has taught you enough. You do not have to hate it. You do not have to erase it. You simply do not need to keep writing the same chapter. A new page is open. Faith writes differently. Wisdom writes differently. Gratitude writes differently. Peace writes differently. Right action writes differently. And now your hand is on the page. Sleep peacefully. Sleep without carrying tomorrow. Sleep without rehearsing poverty. Sleep without fighting the past. The river is still moving. The source is not exhausted. Your intelligence is still alive. Your gifts are still alive. Your ability to choose is still alive. Your future is still open. You are guided. You are supported. You are learning. You are growing. You are becoming a wiser channel of good. Divine order now governs every part of your life. The way is made clear before you. The next step appears at the right time, and when it appears, you recognize it. You take it, then another, until one day you look back and realize that what once felt impossible became a sequence of ordinary, faithful, intelligent steps. That is how a river reaches the sea. It does not leap across the earth. It flows. And so do you. Rest now. Receive peace. Release fear. Trust the next step. The way is opening. And all is well.